Did you have anything else you'd want to add, or is that?
No. I mean, like, do I love armored fighting vehicles? Yeah. 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 Do I rue the fact that bolt action doesn't represent them super well? Yeah. Yeah. Do I hate bolt action for it? A little bit, It hurts. But
This is wildly off topic. You need a breath? Do you need to take a smoke break or something?
I think I just need a therapist.
Yeah, we can't do that. Get on with the questions. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the HMG podcast. I'm Daniel.
I'm Tyler.
I'm Gorcin.
And we're here today with the HMG FAQ. So this is questions that we've got from our audience, ones that we've seen notably come up on different forums, and just ones that we've had ourselves, and our opinions or answers to those questions.
Expert opinions, thank you, Dan.
Well, okay, some expert opinions and then mine.
Yeah, that's the Dunning and Kruger. Dunning-Kruger. I'm cutting this bit.
Yeah, no, the expert was sarcasm, obviously.
Yeah.
Look,
Of course.
Oh, look, it's all in good fun. So we're going to probably have a slightly different format than what we normally would in our episode recordings. But did we want to enter into sit rep?
Yeah, go on.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So I might kick us off then. So ironically, from a bolt action point of view, we recently had another event that was played. That was actually just back in November, a Skulls event. So I TO'd that one, almost lost my voice, which is hilarious on Monday because I'm in charge of a team of people now to deliver an objective and I couldn't talk to them.
So they were able to get something done.
Yes, just but it wasn't what I told them to do. So that was all quite enjoyable. We had a stack of players come down for that. So I won't dive into that part too much because we'll probably cover it in another episode later on.
Or the fire maneuver section.
Or the fire maneuver section, yeah. But I also got some base coating done on my Sepacat Jaguar model for Wasmex.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked to have got that far. So it's been really hard balancing the time and effort of that model with also just life in general, because it is a scale model, and so I'm wanting to take a lot more time through the different stages and not just simply slap paint on it. So yeah, it'll be entered into Wasmex, and ideally it'll be entered into Wasmex for this year.
Nice.
As
2022.
As opposed to the 2023. But whatever.
Well, if it doesn't fit into Wasmex, you can always chuck it into Iron Signet.
I probably will be, because I don't know if I'll get a placing at Wasmex considering the caliber of people that are generally in there. But the intent is to compete and compete hard. So,
I reckon you will.
Yeah.
I've seen when you pull your finger out there, and you could do it. 100%.
Yeah. And maybe one day we'll see those Bulgarians.
Yeah. I did buy, actually, that's on the Bulgarians. I did actually, so I've been using some 3D printed trucks, which partly is proof of concept for me running the army, and I just haven't ever replaced them. They're slightly under scale. I did actually buy 2 German trucks to replace those from Rubicon. So they've come in.
Is that the Blitz kit?
Yeah.
How is it?
I've opened the boxes to check the parts, and largely I'm pretty happy with it. It's it's a pretty solid box.
Is it just like a transport truck?
Yeah, they're just
Opel Blitz. Yeah,
Opel Blitzes. Yeah, they do it just. It's essentially a lorry. There's nothing special else about from that.
It's a very British word.
I apologise. Yeah. So,
Opel Blitz. Lorry. That's what I said.
Yeah, pretty much. And so they're largely design-wise, they function exactly the same as every other truck. So you've got your double stack wheels and double axle stuff. You either do canvas tops or fenced out the wall top or whatever. But yeah, looking forward to getting those done. And once the Wasmex model is done, I will be hitting those Bulgarians hard because I'll be in a different space to be able to get that stuff done next year. So that's probably, to be honest, that's most of the time that I've had is working on that Sepacat model.
Yeah, nice.
It's a lot of effort to get that nice and looking well. I have a couple of base colors to get the modulation down with some initials, and then very much it's now all just weathering, painting, getting all that finish stuff on.
Nice.
Multiple glazing layers, gloss, all that fun stuff.
Fun.
Live the dream. What about yourself, Tyler? What are you working on?
What have I been working on? Well, I bought a 3D printer. So I've been working on that. It was a bit of a whim purchase, which is both I bought it on a whim. It was on. I saw it on sale for Black Friday, and then I was like, I bet you someone in Perth doesn't actually want theirs anymore, and they'll sell it to me. Found a reseller who was selling them for even cheaper because he needed space or whatever.
Yeah. Sure.
So I bought this thing that he'd never even opened before, which was great. So I set it up, made a couple prints, really happy with it. As I've said before, I've got Dan's Death Guard army that I feel very, very strongly that I have to do something good with. So I printed off a Death Guard model to just test stuff, and it came out really nice. I'm actually really excited to start painting Death Guard.
That was a really good model. Yes.
Yeah, I'm really excited to start painting Death Guard. But before I do that, I've put down all of that because I'm about to start painting my Australians for 42 and 22. So that'll be a fun little challenge. See how much I can get done on that. Apart from that, I've also bought probably about $200 to $300 worth of storage containers recently.
Yeah, nice.
Just trying to organize my hobby life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I did that not too long ago.
Yeah.
I spent that month's hobby money on just like foam trays and plastic tubs from Officeworks and just stacked them up.
I'm about due for another one of those. I've got boxes and now it's about getting all the foam to put them in.
Yeah. I was sitting down with my roommate, and she was like, "Oh, we were talking about moving house," and she was like, "Oh, what do you want in a house?" And my partner was like, "Oh, I really want a bathtub. Like that's I must have a bathtub." And then they're like, "We need a backyard for the dog." I'm like, "Just give me a study. I just need like room enough."
Yeah.
And they're like, "A dream? What do you want?" I was like, "A modular storage system. One thing that is all one brand that just sits across a wall and just like all clicks together and just so pretty. In my head at least. So that's but yeah, a lot of storage. Trial by fire on the 3D printer.
Yeah, for sure.
I've messed up. For those of you who know how the lingo, who are in the know, I've messed up the FEP, the FEP film. So there's like a in the resin vat on the bottom to keep it from touching the UV screen. Obviously, is a piece of for lack of a better word, plastic.
Right.
And if you don't clean it, while you're cleaning it, you can scratch it and it gets cloudy and stuff just from resin buildup. And I didn't know how to clean it properly, and so I sat there with a scraper. I was like, trying to get off this resin.
Nice.
And so I've just kind of dented it and scratched it up, and I've ordered new ones from the supplier.
Yeah, you should be able to get replacements.
Anycubic. And I placed the order about a week ago, and it says on the tracking thing, it says order placed. It doesn't have a date, nothing's changed. I emailed them 3 times, and they have given me nothing in return. And so I'm like, I'm going to have to open a dispute with like through PayPal or whatever to get money back and find somewhere else to go, because it's just, anyway. But
they're a well-known 3D printing brand, and one of their resin printers is one of the best on the market. Yeah. So they, around Christmas time, have a tendency to get crazy. Yeah. So it could just be a backlog issue. But if they've taken your money at the same time without confirming an order.
Yeah. So not as much painting as I would have liked, although my partner is getting into painting.
Well done.
Yes, thank you. We played Strongborn, which I might talk about in Fire and Maneuver. But yeah, she started painting models from that, and she buys little clay things, just like cheap arts and craft things you get from like Riot or whatever.
Like bric-a-brac.
Yeah. And she's having a lot of fun painting that. She sees 28 mil and she gets scared. It's too small. What she doesn't understand is that it's easier to hide things at 28 millimeters.
Yes, yeah, that'll become very apparent as she gets further in.
Yeah.
100%.
So yeah, but apart from that, I haven't got anywhere near as much painting done as I would have liked, which sucks, but is where it is. Because I'm also in the end of my degree. I've got 1 week until my thesis. Thank you. It's a film degree, but still, here we are.
It's an achievement. It's a milestone.
Yeah, I'm very happy, very excited to spend like next year just getting out there and having fun rather than studying. How about you, Gorcin? What have you been up to?
Yeah.
How is your hobby going, my friend?
So I haven't really done a lot recently. I've been house sitting for a few weeks, so I didn't bring any of my hobby supplies with me and stuff. So my first sort of decision on that was just to kind of not, just leave it and make an intentional decision to not do any hobby for a couple of weeks. I wasn't feeling burnt out, but burnout is one of those things that sneaks up on you. So I was like, oh, look, I'll take it. And I got to admit, that was probably the worst decision I possibly could have made. Because all I've been doing for the last couple of weeks is I've been doing like meta hobby stuff. I've been like doing army lists. I've been doing research. I've been digging through military archives.
Yeah, nice.
Documents and stuff, doing all of that kind of stuff. And paint schemes and planning and project planning and doing some shopping for upcoming dioramas and all this other sort of stuff. And I was like, okay, I was nowhere near burnout. It was kind of nice to take the break anyway, but I think the break lasted the hour it took me to drive home.
And like a true addict, straight back in.
Yeah,
I love that.
That was good. And I think from the last episode that we recorded, I started and finished painting my Australians.
Oh man, that was
so my prediction,
Herculean effort.
My prediction where Gorcin was going to get another army done before my Bulgarians was correct. And it was the two. It was the Germans and the Australians.
Look, my Germans aren't complete.
I'll take it.
I've got a couple of weapon teams and a few other guys and a couple of vehicles here and there. And with the Australians, I was very graciously gifted last Christmas. A lot of like knickknacks. So you had like the light howitzer team, short pounder light howitzer team. I got the metal officer cast, the Australian officer cast, which are really cool. And longtime friend Michael got me the metal sculpts of the independent commandos. They come with like Owen guns and machetes and stuff.
Awesome. They're great.
They fit. Like they're just different enough to the Allied Commandos plastics that you look at them and go, hey, they look cool, but they also kind of blend in the right way. So as like a separate squad of veterans, or if you really wanted to point them out, they'd fit in really nicely.
They've got beards too, which is really cool.
And just like crazy facial hair and like hats and all this other crazy
the designers on that kit nailed it, absolutely nailed it.
So there's a few of those guys that I think I only did the 3 metal guys out of the officer team. I didn't do any of the 10. So I've still got a couple of bits and pieces, and I didn't base my Australians, but they're, I think, like 55 guys, an artillery piece, and a tank in 17 days counts.
It was fantastic.
I think that counts.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
How are you basing them, if you don't mind?
A jungle. It's going to be jungle base.
Yeah. But how?
I have no idea how to do jungle bases. I should have done some research on that. Instead, I was looking at orders of battles about stuff that happened in Vietnam.
Yeah, okay.
Because there's a Vietnam event that the guys sort of said, hey, we need a couple of people who are willing to give us a hand, try to put an event together. So I've been doing my crazy thing and coming up with crazy ideas.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Trying to put that together.
Very exciting.
Yeah, it's been pretty much it. And yeah, looking forward to 42 and 22. So I'm going to be taking a North African US infantry platoon.
Yeah.
Everybody's inexperienced, 1 BAR in the squad, 3 LMGs in the platoon. It's going to be disgustingly terrible.
Yeah.
But I'm here for it.
Yeah, I remember reading the report on it, and it was like, oh, US can only come in because they came later and stuff like that. And I was looking through the New Guinea book, because that's where my Australians come from. And it was like one of the theatre selectors, because we're doing theatre selectors, was, oh, yeah, you can take American troops. And I was like, oh, cool. All right. Nice little loophole. It's like, they all must be inexperienced. I was like, far out. That's rough.
Yeah. So my North African infantry platoon, I've counted down, almost down to the round of ammunition. I've recreated a platoon on the attack supported by a weapons platoon.
That's so cool.
And I grabbed a couple of 37mm anti-tank guns and a 75mm gun motor carriage.
Yes.
Which you are printing for.
I am printing. Well, will once I get new FEP paper, any cubic, if you're listening.
Fun fact about the 75mm gun motor carriage. A lot of people don't know this, but the 75mm gun that's on it is not the 75mm gun that's on all of the tanks. It is an artillery gun from 1895.
1895?
Most of the 75mm howitzers in most of the nations are pre-World War I. They're like 19th century designs. Most of them. Yeah.
And as they went to war, they were like,
That'll do.
They still work, right?
Yeah.
I actually because you sent me the file, and the dude who put it together put a little brief on the bottom.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, it had like 50 or however many were turned into gun motor carriages of 75s.
Yeah.
By the end of the war, most of them been turned back because they just didn't need them.
Well, because they were, it's actually really funny because they were a band-aid because they only had 37mm anti-tank guns initially. So then they had the artillery 75s. So then they put them on the half track as a band-aid while they made a tank destroyer. While they made the M10, which was a band-aid, the M10 tank destroyer was not a tank destroyer design. They said, crap, we got Sherman hulls. We actually have a 75mm or 76mm anti-tank gun. Yeah. It doesn't fit in... stuff it, chuck it on the hull, get it. It doesn't fit in the turret. What do we do? Just lop the roof off. Just lop the roof of the turret.
Who needs a roof?
And then of course it was too heavy, so they had to add the counterweight.
Yeah, true. Jesus Christ.
And then they were like, it's too slow. We'll just shave the armor down. It's still too slow. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
We've now reached the point of the project where we say it's complete to your requirements.
Yeah, there's a Hellcat coming. You guys will be fine.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about that the other day. Fuck. I had a really good point, I swear to fuck. What did you just say? I literally just felt everything just flow out of my brain.
Did you have like that drain plug moment where you just got like a sink full of water and you just go...
and you're desperately trying to grab it.
I was trying to grab it. I was like, oh, it's right there. What were we just talking about?
The cold open, that's what that was.
M10 or the 75mm gun motor carriage was a band-aid for the M10, which is a band-aid for the
and
M18.
you said by the end of the project, here we are. All right, everything's back. I've just regained consciousness. Anyway, I've just woken up from the Matrix. Here we go. Yeah, there's a saying in film, which is you don't finish a film, you abandon it. And I feel that's very applicable here. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Spoken by a bunch of art majors that don't know how to deliver on deadlines.
That's not true at all. The money runs out. It's not our fault.
The money runs. Yes, it runs out on the deadline.
And look, the project manager's catatonic on the floor.
We call them producers in the industry.
Oh dear. Oh, so it's good. So
that was the hobby update.
Sorry, yes, the hobby. Right. Sorry, just quickly. I've also been working on my custodies because I'm doing my very first ever 40k first blood tournament.
Yeah, there's a few of us.
Purists, just close your ears for a bit.
Yeah. For those
we'll be brief.
Yeah. It's really fun. I originally collected guard and then was like, what's the most
every bolt action player?
Yeah, like every bolt action player. And then I was like, what's the most opposite of guard? Custodies. Rather than removing handfuls of models, I just start with a handful of models. And so, I've been having a lot of fun painting those guys up and getting back into 40k. Sorry, Dan, I know.
No, it's all good.
But yeah, it's been really fun. I'm actually really surprised about how much I'm enjoying it. It might just be because of who I'm playing with. I'm playing with Nick, you guys know. Best guy to play any game with. He's like...
You're a proper gentleman.
Yeah, really, really good. Sorry. All right.
Cool.
You can unclose your ears now and we can move on.
So I don't know how they're supposed to know.
Hey, come back.
That might have been a bad call from Dan.
That's all right. They'll figure it out eventually.
So we might move into fire and maneuver now.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned briefly earlier, I was doing the TO for the Skulls event while Justin's in Canada still.
Yes.
Camel Cup.
Camel Cup, it was called. Yes. So we had another magical miniature. This time it was actually a pair. We had Caesar and Sergio.
Cesare,
whatever. We had a camel and a dude. And essentially they became additional objectives, marker points. They interacted with a whole set of side missions. Squad carried objectives. Yep. And so you got bonus points for keeping them alive, bonus points for reuniting them. The idea was that the camel held documents that needed to be protected in a saddlebag, so you had to protect the camel. And the idea that was Sergio was he a double agent that we were trying to capture?
Yep, that rings a bell.
And so it was like you tried to capture the double agent, but also the information that he held, or hold on to the double agent and the information that he held. So
Nice.
on each board, you had 2 Sergios and 2 camels running around. And there are multiple instances where, unfortunately, there was cruelty to animals, especially from sniper
Tabletop
shots.
animals.
Yeah.
Tabletop plastic miniatures that represent animals. That were, because you got points for taking them out, everyone was like, Sniper City, we're just going to nail them and just get the points straight up in each game.
I got absolutely disassembled by Nat Cole's sniper in the 3rd game.
Yes.
I think that one sniper got like 4 or 5 auto dice. Didn't get my fucking camel.
Yeah. Well,
That's my camel.
what's crazy about it is like you had like Nat Cole's sniper actually had done quite well in 2 of the 3 games. And your game was crazy. It was like 4 units or 4 kills like every turn. And then you had
1.
Oh, sorry.
1 kill every turn.
A rapid fire sniper rifle.
Yeah, I just kept charging him with an individual man.
And we go to Sam Metum. Chris Ramsey had a sniper squad detachment in the Soviet list from the campaign book, and he was like, "This unit is useless." I was just like, "You literally got more sniper shots." It's like, and they all missed.
Yeah,
Wow.
I actually ran the probabilities on that, and it's 2/3 to hit, so 3+, and then if you assume that your target's regular, it's a 50% kill chance, which means 1/3 of every time you fire your sniper will he kill something.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's assuming you're shooting at regulars.
Yep.
So picking out stuff out of the squad is not the best return on investment.
Correct.
Your best bet is shooting weapon teams.
Yeah.
Now, everybody kind of knew that, right? Because you use a sniper, you hit the weapon team, you get rid of the whole team.
Yeah.
But it's like when you actually do the math, you're just like, oh man, it's 1 in 3.
Yeah.
I'm spending 50 to 65 points on something that activates a return on and like kills something at 1 in 3. It's like, I'll take another mortar.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, or I'll use the points to upgrade my medium mortar to a heavy and my medium howitzer to a heavy.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to have a great time.
or reinvest that 50 points into, a better armored tank or an armored car or something like
or
that.
you get one of the MG cheese wagons that exists for every nation. Right?
Or even just 5 extra riflemen, right? Yeah.
Well, come on, Dan. That sounds a little bit too...
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was really great. I don't have time today really to go into a full breakdown of the TO side, and we had some very worthy winners. The scores were in some ways ridiculously close, and in other ways not.
Yeah, what? Jackson was best allied general, firing away by like 20 victory points or something?
Yeah, Jackson had...
Well done.
So Jackson topped out his side of the factions. And
that's what happens when he doesn't come across me on the day.
Oy. And his closest chaser was 20 victory points behind him.
Yeah.
Wow.
And at the end of the 3 games. And now the way that I had to actually run the scores, that was 20 points based on the scoring that was on paper. There was actually more points that wasn't allocated in the matrix that I had on the actual score sheets that if we needed to go to count back, no one was going to touch it.
Where'd those scores come from?
So there was the initial scores for the
missions inside objectives
themselves, and there were victory points, but each mission from a TO scoring point of view was actually capped at a certain amount.
Oh, right, okay.
But on the record sheets themselves, we obviously had the full count
right,
that was in. So I didn't need to go back to it in most cases because it was variable enough. But it meant that those people that did win by significant margins, I was able to backtrack and make sure they matched up appropriately with someone. But yeah, he was well and truly ahead.
Where did you place, Gorcin?
I got 3rd best allied.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
So I think there was like probably 6 or 7 players between me and Jackson.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think because I think the 4th and 5th Axis players filtered in between the first and second allied.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think, and I had a quick flick through at the scoreboard once it was all done and dusted. Yeah, it was somewhere in there. But
Who took the day, Allied or Axis?
Axis.
The Axis very much smashed.
Really?
Yeah, they destroyed.
I think the best allied general wasn't the 4th best player.
No, I think they were actually 6th or 7th.
Oh, right. So I would have been like 10th or something.
Wow, jeez.
Yeah, it was like when I went through the tables, I had to resort it because I thought I got it wrong.
Yeah. Some very, very strong, very competitive lists.
Yeah.
Some very good decisions. I had my first game was up against BJ, which was kind of his first tournament.
Yeah.
I think it was
like
4th or 5th game or something like that.
Definitely his first in a while.
Yeah. Played well. We were able to. He's still a quick player, innately. So we were able to talk about a lot of the mechanics and work through it and stuff. So that was a nice, really fun game. trying to remember who my second game was up against. Oh, my second game was up against Russ.
Yeah.
And he's being very gentlemanly about it. But there was a few decisions we both made where we said, I should do this to win, but I'm going to do this because this is more thematic. And we both made a couple of those decisions.
Nice.
I call that pulling punches because it is.
Yeah.
He says I beat him fair and square. I still
which
think
is sort of
you
true.
beat him.
sort of true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he had basically what it came down to. That was double envelopment. So we had to get across each other's side of the board. And for some reason, on his second turn, he didn't run his infantry.
Yeah.
He only walked them.
Right.
And that basically meant I think he was only 12 or 18 inches up the board at that point, and it was like bottom of turn 3. I was like, you're not making the rest. You're not making the other 30 inches in like 2, maybe 3 turns if you lightning blitz it.
Because in order to do that, you'd have to run every turn there afterwards, and you're going to run
and for
into
3
the enemy.
turns. Yeah. I didn't have that much in that flank, but he would have been able to get a couple units off with no trouble had he just consistently run. But instead, he swept across to the middle. And I was contesting a lot of the side objectives in the middle. But the real reason that I snuck away the win was on the opposite flank. He had one of the light Japanese tanks. I think it was a Hargo, whatever one of those tin cans are. He had it parked across a road with a lunge miner next to it. And my Stuart was on that flank. I just rolled it onto that flank. And he moved the Hargo off the road.
Oh.
And then he had just run his lunge miner into position.
No.
The turn reset.
Yeah.
I grabbed the dice and like it was the first dice of the turn. Ran my Stuart 36 inches off the board. I had like 1 inch spare.
Yeah.
And it was just like, whew. And that was like turn 2. Might have been even turn 3. So like, it was really. It was risky to take. It wasn't like
you give up the asset, right?
It wasn't a cheese wagon Stuart, but it still had three machine guns.
Yeah.
and it was my only light anti-tank.
And that's what you lose out on. What, turn 2?
It might have been turn 2, turn 3. So it was really, really early.
Yeah, right. Jeez.
And everything was still alive. Lots of threats on the board and stuff. And and
but 3 victory points. I mean,
it was a nice open line of sight. His lunge miner hadn't activated. His tank was still. I mean, he was just moving around machine gunning stuff, and I was like, I've got a lot of vets there, and I got regulars in cover. Like, I'm not really fussed about it.
Threat assessment.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm not going to get another chance.
3, no.
And also because he had a couple of field guns. He had a couple of field guns. He probably could have seen the Stuart and that sort of thing.
Actually, we look all right. I'm going to keep that.
Yeah, and that was pretty much it. And we got into a big kind of tussle in the middle, and he tried to take out my officer, and there was a katana wielding officer who cut down so many guys. And one of the things that I came to really appreciate, I played the Australians and I played forward deployment pretty aggressively. I got a platoon scout team, just 3 vets with SMGs. I grabbed 2 spotters and a sniper team. So I had 4 forward deployers.
Oh my God.
And
Australians start, they also go first, don't they?
Go first. And 18 inches away from Australians, not 12.
Unless they face Bulgarians and they just go no. But
And honestly, I was like, it's an extra 6 inches and you go first. Like, it's not really that big of a deal. I put a spotter down and then I'm like, you can't deploy anything in this 36-inch bubble. Because remember, it's an 18-inch radius, not bubble.
Either side.
And it was like, oh God. And then when I did it against BJ, he was like, where can I put my sniper? And I was like, oh, that looks like there's a spot there. He's like, out in the open in the middle of the road. I was like, that looks like a great spot.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And so that was, and then same when I played against Nat in the third game. Nate, sorry. Didn't make that much of a difference because we were playing.
It's a lot of control though.
What's the mission called where you start in opposite corners? Sectors?
We played sectors as the last one.
Yeah. It was that one. And it didn't matter so much because he played like reserve, and then I got deleted by the prep bombardment, and then his multi-launcher landed, and then it is multi-launcher, and then it landed again.
Yeah.
Nat came over to me and was like, it's hit 3 times. Yeah. And I'm going, what do you mean? He's like, 3 turns in a row. It's hit 3 times.
I don't know what's going on multi-launches. Jackson did the same thing, and like I think it was 2 of his games. He just kept rolling 6s like it was nobody's business. Absolutely destroyed some people.
And so look, it might not have been the best game plan, but I laid it out because with sectors and prep bombardment, he put a lot of his stuff in reserve, and he was running a mechanized list.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and went, I got a lot of infantry. I had like the dice cap, which I think was 12. I got 4 squads of infantry. I got 2 squads of 7 veterans. 5 squads of infantry, 3 squads of 8 regulars, and a platoon scout team. Like, board control's my thing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I was starting in the corner. I thought about it, and I was like, it's a 1 in 6 chance as multi-launcher hits. It's a 16% chance. I'm not going to change my entire game plan on 16% chance. which should sound really familiar to listeners of the show. Because I'm like, okay, fine. You know, the prep bombardment I'll catch out for you
You'll
guys.
cop it, yeah.
No big deal. I'll cop some pins. But I got my first lieutenant right in there. And what I'll do is I will just vomit my entire force across the diagonal. And then he's going to come in one at a time. And I will just pin the crap out of all of his open top stuff.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen because he prep bombarded me.
Of course.
And then I got the first dice and I used my platoon scout team. They just hosed the transport, blew it up, and then the squad inside was on like 4 pins by the end. And I was like, cool, you can lie down and hide.
Goodbye.
Yeah, and then his Nurble was like, oh, that's cute.
Lie down, eh?
Yeah, just splat. And then it just kept happening. And because in sectors you have to start in the quarter.
Yeah.
I got 12 or however many dice it was, and I got 5 squads of infantry like in there, plus all of my teams. Like everybody's in 6.
Yeah.
Just pick a target.
Oh my god.
And so a reserve would have been nice, but the main thing that I was going was to hit really hard turn 1, get him reeling, and then roll it. And then he just did that to me instead. I was reeling from like the 3rd or 4th dice out of the bag.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of opportunities where I might have been able to snag a draw. And then Nate was like, oh, you've got a draw potential there. Yeah, I'm going to delete that unit. And that one. And that one. Oh, here's another multi-launcher. Just fair and square. Like, I lean a lot on the multi-launcher because it's a 1 in 6 chance. But honestly, he played really well, made some really good decisions. Yeah, he had good dice, but they weren't the reason that he won. He won because he played better. Fair and square.
Yeah.
How about you, Dan? You've been playing anything? Fire and maneuvering?
So outside of being like running the event, not a whole lot. There's a bit of I was going to say there's a bit of self play that I've been doing in the background of like mission testing, but I appreciate.
Do you have another word for that?
A lot of play testing I've done by myself.
Good.
better.
Oh god, I didn't even think about that.
He hears it now.
We'll cut that.
We will not.
But yeah, so one of the things that I do on and off tournaments, around tournaments, taking on feedback from things, is trying to come up with different missions. That's how Find the Informant was created. That's how some of the other missions that I've built that we've put in events has happened. Yep. And there's one that I'm working on at the moment, which is it's a different take on key position. So there'll be 5 objectives on the field. Deployment zone is done a little bit differently. Reserves is done a little bit differently. But the actual objectives themselves are worth different amounts of points. So the idea is that, for example, if you invest resources swinging out on your left or right flank, the chance is that you're going to get a higher number of points on those outside ones. However, the outside ones are more vulnerable to reserve outflank attacks. So, but of course, your opponent's got the same thing on both of their flanks.
Are you playing around with the idea of giving outflank rules to the mission to kind of encourage that?
Yeah, and so I'm trying to figure that.
Most missions actually have outflank by default.
Yes.
They just often get turned off in tournaments.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, true.
But this would be one where I would specifically say, yes, it can be allowed, but I'm just trying to figure out, I'd have to put a limit on exactly how much can be put in outflank. Yeah. But also, even if you decided to put everything on outflank on one side or both sides to nail those side objectives, those side objectives together are going to be worth less than the ones of the 3 that are in the middle. So so even if you just nailed the outside stuff, that's still not enough for you to win the game. You'll have to fight in the middle as well.
Fair enough. I've always been a fan of the missions where it's like, in your sector or in your deployment zone, it's worth 1 point, in middle 2, and then your opponent, it's in 3, because sometimes you sit there and you go, far out, I really need to just push this to keep this game in the bag, and it makes some really interesting choices, I think.
Yeah, and there's another one that I'm working on, which it revolves around the objectives being in a diamond pattern, and it leverages that space of the one that is closest to you is essentially it's essentially only worth 1 point.
Yeah.
It's worth 1 point to you where it's defended, but it's worth 3 points if your opponent takes it. So technically it's actually worth 4 because you're going to lose that point if they haven't got it. And so it really encourages a drive of you need to go and get it. But the other objectives are worth 5 each. And so it's, again, splitting that decision making to go, you need to come at it with a battle plan. You can either drive hard and, swing out left or right. And you're going to need to obviously go to the center. and if your opponent's battle plan is the same as yours, then you might just create the whirlwind of death that we all love in the middle.
The official term is Death Vortex.
Death Vortex,
Death
coined by
Vortex.
Michael Andrews. And everyone loves a good Death Vortex in the middle. But the result is if you're both doing conflicting plans, you're going to grind to a halt very quickly. And then you might need to pivot. But they're both very different types of missions. And I'm also trying to figure out a couple of nice attacker-defender style scenarios based on an event that I'm planning somewhere in 2022. Somewhere.
Nice. I was thinking about this. I do some work for my family's furniture company, and every single box we have comes with so much polystyrene, it's not funny.
Oh yeah.
And so you get like these massive bits, and I'm like, oh man, I need to just get all of this and chuck it on a board and just make something out of it, because I feel so bad watching all of this, and people will pay good money for polystyrene or whatever. And so I was sitting there and I was thinking about it the other day, and so I have an idea for an event that I want to try.
Good.
Maybe this year. Maybe next year.
I was going to say, you've at the time of recording, you have 20 days.
Let's go. It's I'm a bit miffed we're not doing this podcast next week.
Yes.
Or after next week.
Yeah.
Because then we would have been able to talk about Tactical Reload.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
I'm very excited for that.
Well, we can dedicate its own episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do a bit of a spotlight on the brainchild of Dan.
Yes, it's very exciting. I having played it before, my quote for the game is shank.
I mean
that there.
And because of Tyler's quoted word, I had to change certain mechanics. But
I didn't break the game, but
The key takeaway is playtest, or you're going to get stabbed.
Well, that was a playtest, so.
Or you're going to get stabbed.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Ironically, every insert. Yeah. Cool. What about you, Tyler?
Me. I've just been really gearing up for the First Blood 40k tournament. I was too busy to attend Camel Cup, unfortunately.
Too busy for politics. You got your parties.
I know.
You realize where you are, right?
I know. I won't make it out. If you're seeing this, Mum, I'm dead. No. God.
We're going to have to cut that. Because otherwise, we're going to be incriminated in some sort of a crime.
At the rate we're going, this is going to be like 4 minutes to this goddamn episode.
God damn. Just one of those days. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. So I've just been playing a lot of 40k. And if I see another Blood Angel, don't get me wrong, I love you, Nick, I really do. But if I see another frickin' Blood Angel, I'm gonna scream.
No, doesn't he not play Blood? Doesn't he play Successor Chapter?
Oh yeah.
Come on.
Well, he plays with the Blood Angel.
Yes, because there is
chapter.
what's the word? Successor Chapter. Come on, Tyler.
But
Come on.
But he doesn't make a custom Successor Chapter. He plays with Blood Angels.
Well, no,
because
they're good Successor Chapters.
Okay.
They're the favorite son of the Blood Angels.
Okay. Cool. If I see them again, I'm going to cry. No, I've just been
Good luck tomorrow.
Yeah. I've basically just been playing with the custodies and stuff, which is kind of irrelevant because they're about to get a new codex in like a month. But I'm having fun playing.
So Tyler's going to win First Blood.
Yeah, my codex will be the newest, ergo I win. So that's going to be a lot of fun, I guess.
Yeah, good.
But yeah,
You'll learn a lot.
Yeah, I've just been really happy to just play some games, essentially. I'm just really
living the dream.
Really jazzed that I get to, because I was way too busy for the bolt action stuff. And then I just had a couple opportunities on Sundays to just play with Nick, and it's just been freaking phenomenal.
That's good.
I also, so I played a game of Strongborn, which is a local game.
Yes,
we should hopefully have the video out for that before this video.
Fingers crossed.
But we'll see.
Strongborn is a couple here in Perth that have... Basically, they got hit by the lockdown, and they said, we want to play a tabletop game.
Yeah.
But we want to play a tabletop game that's interesting, accessible,
that
everybody can play, and is not the same every time you play it,
no.
but also doesn't cost $450. It doesn't come with doesn't weigh 10 kilos
to start.
Gloomhaven,
To get going,
for example.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, sure, Gloomhaven is quote unquote only $250.
It's also amazing, but
Yes, but it's also that's not for everyone.
no,
Yeah.
it's not.
And you can't play that with everyone.
No,
I mean,
no.
I've been playing it for Gloomhaven for about a year, and I'm with the same group of friends, and I'm still all of us are still querying rules, and we've got the rule book and stuff. Strongborn is the exact opposite of that in all of the best ways. It's a game that you can pick up and play with anybody in 5 minutes, and you can have a great time.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. So
yeah.
stay tuned for that episode. If it's not already out, if it is, go check it out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
absolutely.
It's really cool. The explanation video I think is 2.5 minutes,
And it's all you need.
and it's all you need. I started reading the rules because I like reading rules. Of course I do. We're here. But my partner, I was trying to read the rules to her, and it's 6 pages, including the back and front cover. But she was like, I'm not interested. I'm like, how about a 2.5 minute video? Do you reckon I could do that? And she's like, okay. And so she watched the 2.5 minute video, and she understood the game better than I did. So, different learning styles and all of that.
Absolutely.
But so we sat down, and because Jacob played it, and I was there during the interview, and we played with the Strongborn guys, and they were really helpful. And Jacob and I sat down, and we're like, yeah, this is fun. We're not really sure it's our cup of tea because it's a bit simplified. It doesn't have a cool kind of as many mechanics as maybe we would have liked.
Or we're used to.
And then I kept remembering the words of the guys that were like, it's not it's for people who don't normally play. It's for neurodivergent people who find it kind of hard to concentrate on things. And so I was like, well, I'm going to try it out on my partner. She's going to be my guinea pig. So I took the copy that they gifted us. Thank you very much, guys. And I took it home and convinced my partner. I was like, look, I think this might be the game for you. And so we sat down, watched the video after I tried to explain the rules, and she wasn't there for it. And she loved it so much she started painting models. And I think as anyone who has a partner who is a wargamer, you should that sells itself to me.
Yep.
I would
it
happily
does,
pay
100%.
almost any amount of money to have my partner sit down and paint minis with me.
Oh, look, but you're absolutely right. I know the first time that Ali sat down, I got Ali involved from hey, look at this really cool aesthetic of forest elves and stuff.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it didn't take much of I basically waved in the vague direction of the shelves, and I went, if you want to paint something, if we can spend time doing this, if you want, you've got a bit of an arty background, you could, I'm not going to force you to, but if you want to go for a look. And then she came back with this giant box, and I was like, oh God. I was like, I've made a mistake.
Fantastic.
I've created a monster.
And I love it. But no, it is, I think it's sometimes lost on me. Not everyone learns and plays the way I do. And I like to think that everyone does because it's the way I enjoy it. But the reality is, even things that sometimes I think of as a gateway game, as, Star Wars X-Wing is a classic example of a gateway game for me. It's not as heavy on the rules, although there's some complex interactions. Gets you
very
miniatures,
tight and competitive.
Very tight and competitive, gets you some of that movement. I enjoyed obviously flying casual and playing with it, but I would look to be using that as a leverage into either Armada or into some of the other space dogfighting games, in that sort of space. And sometimes I forget that some people go, actually, I just want to play X-Wing. I'm not interested in doing anything else, but this right here I'm enjoying. And I think Strongborn for some people is actually going to be that golden ticket.
Yeah.
The thing that made me realize that was Wings of Glory.
Yeah.
Is that there's 3 tiers of rules.
Yeah.
And everybody who I've ever showed it, I'm just like, we'll play the basic one. We'll show you the core mechanics. And then I'm hoping to find somebody else who wants to go to advanced or standard and simulator.
Yeah.
And everybody's just gone, no, the basic's super fun. See you later. and you can't fault it. It is super fun. When I played Wings of Glory, my immediate next thing was like, how do I do climb rates? How do I appreciate the differences of the different fighters? And all of this other stuff. And I was like, how do I bring all of that into it? And everybody was just like, plane goes near.
Yeah, I was going to say, and Jacob's sitting there going, daka, 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 daka.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
No,
right?
not at all.
And it, in a lot of ways, it kind of taught me, and I was just like, wait, tabletop games can be fun? Are you sure about that?
And simple?
Yeah. It's just like, I I'm not angry.
Yeah.
Am I playing? Is this how this works?
Why
Wait,
am I
wait.
not salty?
Let me compute whether I'm angry about not being angry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
Just sit down staring at this like 1/200 scale P51D. Just
Yep. It's like, what are you trying to tell me?
tell me your secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
No, that's
so
excellent.
I was really happy with that. And yeah, just kind of having a good time essentially.
How
finishing
dare you.
off. I know, finishing off my degree, and then once I've done that, we'll see. Hopefully, more games come out.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we might roll on to the questions, but before we do, we will take a short break.
Excellent.
So welcome back. We're just going to cover off some of the questions now that we have. I couldn't trust myself, so I actually wrote out all my responses to the questions on paper.
Of course you did.
Yep. So there's 4 pages.
I'm
of
just
those.
gonna, as Gorcin said, spit some hot bars.
Yeah. I was like, I've got my questions
Freestyle.
printed out, and Gorchin's like, you just chuckled at me.
I also asked my partner. I was
Oh,
like,
this is
what
good.
questions? As someone who has never played before, what questions do you have? And so she sent an absolute banger of a question.
let's
start with that
Oh, you
one.
want to start with that?
Yeah,
one?
let's start with that one.
I love this so much. Alex, I love you so much. Verbatim, ready? Quote. When you're playing with the small guys, in your head, is it like they're big guys?
Look, I got to be brutally honest. That's actually a really, from a non-wargamer aspect, that's actually a really good question.
It is.
Like,
Yeah,
that's genuinely a really good question.
I obviously cannot. This is a very personal
It's,
question.
Yes.
it's quite
You're going to get
personal.
3 different viewpoints here.
So I obviously can't answer for you guys, and
Yeah.
I dare not speak for our audience. No.
Oh.
They are, because Bolt Action's not even that historical. Like, it's historically set, but it's not like super accurate.
Right.
I don't see it as I don't see my small guys as big guys. I see them as, I don't even see them as like troops who follow my command. I just see them as like, this is just an abstract representation. You're just a model to represent some stats, and I'm going to move you to this other part. And, yeah.
That makes sense.
You are a visual cue for what stats you have.
Yeah.
That's
I'm really glad that we're both on this
okay.
because, yeah, do you have anything else to add?
No, nothing else.
No. Well, I'm sorry, I just didn't want to step on your toes because radically different. I know I'm playing a good game when I'm imagining it in my head.
Right. Yeah.
Like, so for me, the best games of Bolt Action I ever play is when it's super thematic and I can see it in my head, and you know the guys running around the bushes and the hedgerows and stuff like that. It's the thing I love about it is that I get to answer to the question. Yes, I do.
It's really interesting you say that because I never get that while I'm playing. It doesn't matter how much fun I'm having. I always get that afterwards.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get most of it afterwards. And that's what I mean. I know it's an awesome game when I'm getting it in the moment.
Right. Okay.
Because I don't get it all the time. If I'm at a tournament, a lot of it is positioning, going here, doing that. But
Stat
even
blocks.
yeah,
Yeah. Sure.
But even when I'm doing that, I'm like they're running, and I can see them sprint towards the hedge line, and leaving them out in the open personally hurts my heart because I'm like, oh man, I've just left a whole squad out in the open, and I can imagine it like Band of Brothers style, just like as they get shot down. And so yeah, there's
Small guys are big guys.
and small guys are big guys in my head, unless it's a tournament setting, in which case it's less so. And 40k, I find very hard to imagine in my head.
Yeah. See, that's interesting because like Necromunda for me is vivid. It's extremely vivid.
Yeah.
That like I get like images seared into my brain driving home after games.
Nice.
Of stuff that happened, or just like these few seconds to just play on loop as like, you know, my leader just standing there just mag dumping his bolt gun into a couple of gene stealer corrupted Orlocks, and somebody sneaks up to him with like a flamethrower shotgun. Like that few seconds just gets like even the lighting, and I'm like, where would the camera pan in that moment?
No, every time I play Bolt Action, and it's a good game, or like even after a game, it's all the color palette of Band of Brothers and Steven Spielberg-esque. There's like, you know, shaky cam going on every now and then. You see the flash of the muzzles.
It's that scene in Crossroads where like Winters is
Yeah,
like sprinting
he's
up to
just
the
going
hedgerow,
right, yeah.
and then he gets up to the top, and then the camera stops shaking, and then he sees that little kid, and he just hoses everybody with his grad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rip.
I think it's,
yeah.
I think with me it's a bit different.
Mm.
I suppose the challenge that I've got is depending on who I'm playing with, depending on how I'm playing. So events is a classic. I do sometimes have the little men as big men in my head. The main big man is always, of course, the general.
Yeah, okay.
Really?
Because the main big man is, for me, wargaming, I do take a level of personification of, in some instances, it is me leading a force within the realm of the game mechanics and the rules to do something on the battlefield. Sometimes that leads to decisions where I change my mind very quickly and go, no, they're absolutely just toy soldiers. That often happens after my general is killed. But I find that I've flicked between the two. So if I think about, because you're absolutely right, I think Tyler as well, if I think about the most memorable games that I've had, I remember the moments in game and how I imagine them having happened.
Right.
Yeah.
So in your example with Necromunda, I've got a classic Necromunda game that I remember that we played with one of my old groups from years ago, and I'll always remember how those events went. We've also played Inquisitor, 40k Inquisitor, RPG setup. We did it with 54, 28mm. I will never forget what it was like to have someone fighting and jumping into a window to where thought my sniper was safe, him getting KO'd, someone running down the bottom in Terminator armor who's like, I'm just going to run through the building. And he attempts to run through the building and fails. And then the guy looks out the top and is like, I'm going to drop plasma grenade. And he goes, drop plasma grenade. And there was a sequence of events. Someone tried to catch the plasma grenade. They failed. Someone tried to jump in and catch the plasma grenade, trying to save the guy in the Terminator. It all ended up failing. The plasma grenade went off. The guy in Terminator armor is bleeding out on the floor. No legs, half a head. It was really bad. We all laughed hysterically. It was the most funniest thing that happened through the entire game. We weren't playing it. We were actually meant to be there hunting something, and the two Inquisitor teams just went, we're going to kill you. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
But we imagine ourselves role-playing those characters because it was a role-playing style game. So obviously it fits very well. So yes, the little men were big men. But when
I think that's a good point. I think if I'm playing Platoon or larger, I don't see small men as big men, or small guys as big guys. But I think if I'm playing skirmish games or smaller, all the way down to RPG,
absolutely
down to the point where like I am one of the big guys.
Yeah, no, I get that. Like, I mean, D&D is perfect example.
Yeah, sure.
I think.
Yep,
like you
absolutely.
sit there and
or an equivalent.
Any of the multitude of equivalents. So those instances, I lean to go, it's nice to take part in that aesthetic, and it engages my imagination. And because I'm a very logical driven person and pragmatic by nature, I actually lost how to imagine for a long time.
Sure.
So this is a way that engages that creative side of my head. So I take joy in being able to do that. When it comes to specifically large scale army war games, it generally will be me as the commander versus my arch nemesis rival, whoever that is at the time. And there's a little bit of joy and fun that I take in that, but it's done with the element of having fun. It's not done as a super serious, oh my goodness, I can't believe the atrocities that my army is committing. It's not that level.
No.
It's about just getting into the spirit of having a fun game. However, with certain games I simply can't engage that way. It wouldn't. So some of the really big war games, like the operational level war games, some of the, certainly all the like hex and counter chit war games that I've played over the years, like I can't engage in that. Scale is too grander for me to start trying to imagine tens of thousands of warriors as big men that are fighting on the battlefield.
So it's funny because I find that almost easier when it's chit and counter, because I can see it's less about individual guys moving around and you're watching the squad kind of what's the one? Advanced Squad Leader?
Advanced Squad Leader.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was watching you and John play, and I was sitting there, and for the first bit I was like, oh, this is so cool. I can see the guys climbing through the rubble of the buildings and like charging through open terrain and stuff. Almost like the way I see it, it's like an RTS. Like, you play a couple ancient ones. Not to call the games ancient, but ancient.
No,
themed,
ancient
themed.
Yep.
And I like seeing those pictures and stuff. I'm imagining the pike lines and the soldiers coming across the river and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's a completely different headspace. This is
It is.
my career. Like,
Yeah.
which is why it's really cool that I think you guys have different takes on it.
Mm.
Yeah. Anyway,
What a great first question.
what a great
That was
first
awesome.
question.
I didn't know that one was coming, so I didn't have anything written down.
Should we crack on to the generic ones first?
I think we should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So So for this FAQ, we did solicit questions from our audience.
We did.
And thank you very much for your submissions.
Yes.
However, we also kind of compiled the list of questions that we've seen asked on the forums a lot.
Yes.
Some of them will be how to start out in bolt action. Some of them, I think one of the 2 rule mechanics ones ended up in there. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But
Yeah.
it's kind of ones that we all as a round table went, yeah, I've seen this. I've scrolled past this question a lot.
I think a couple of these will probably in the future turn into full kind of little explorations, because especially some of the starting out ones I think are important.
Yeah,
but anyway.
there's a lot there. So we'll start with the first one, which is one that we absolutely have observed in the years of being on the forums and stuff. And that's, I've just purchased a starter set. What do I buy next?
Yeah.
So as far as I understand, the 2 starter sets we've got at the moment is Island Assault and Band of Brothers. I think of the 2 starter sets.
There's also there's the Battle for Berlin massive box set.
Yeah.
Yeah, look.
That's less of a starter.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, not if you're Nick. That was his very first bolt
Really?
action purchase.
Yeah.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
Of course it was.
Yeah, I think my suggestion on this one, or my instance question, if you just bought a starter set and you've just started out, my first thing would be make sure that you've got your auto dice and your pin markers and your templates. Make sure those are in there. They are part of the set, but just make sure
Generally,
you've got
yep.
them.
Hmm.
If you split the set with somebody, maybe go out and source another set
Yeah.
if you're willing to split it again with the same person, or just get those tokens. Then is an Armies of book for the nation that you've got the set of. Once you've got that, my next thing would be spend some time with the Armies of book, look at a generic reinforced platoon and the things that are allowed in it, and pick something for every slot. And just pick one
not
thing
bad.
for every slot. And so that way you might not pick the most optimal thing, but it doesn't matter when you're
Yeah.
starting out.
Yeah.
If you care, hop on the forums and ask some people for some competitive lists.
Yeah.
But just pick something for every slot. So flamethrower team, an anti-tank team, your artillery piece, your self-propelled gun or tank, and MMG team if you're feeling it, something for the mortar slot. So that way that even if you go to an event or you just play narratively, or one of your friends
Yeah.
wants a 1,000 or 1,250 pickup game,
Yeah.
you can fill out a platoon. And that will hold you in really good stead.
Absolutely.
If you wanted a shortcut, you could grab one of the starter armies for
Yes.
that nation,
Yeah.
which is, it's effectively that.
They're pretty good.
They're good value. You get some discount. It's nice. It's all in the one box, but naturally you don't get as much choice.
Yeah.
And
Or a rule book.
or a rule book.
Yeah.
An also decent suggestion that I see up a lot is pick up a couple of trucks.
Yeah.
A couple of soft skin transports. That is here nor there, I think, personally. I think for a lot of people it doesn't kind of sort of fit thematically.
No.
They are extremely useful in bolt action.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can use transports well, you will be served very well by them. But I don't think they're necessary for just going, I've just started. I want to make sure I've got a list I can play anybody with. I want to be ready for pickup games and some events. My first, get your armies of, look at the generic reinforced platoon, pick something for every slot.
Fair enough. Did you want to?
Yeah, I might
for it.
jump in because
Yeah.
I would agree with Gorcin with a large amount of what he said. There is, so I viewed starter set not necessarily just as the 2-4 starter sets, but also a starter box as well, the army boxes. And so my first initial thought is, what do I buy next? I was like, well, if you haven't got one already, realistically, a copy of the rule book, be it digital or
sure.
whatever, and then
The
your
Armies
of book. Now, the intent with those is that's going to tell you anything else that you potentially want to add to your force to create that, sort of 1,000-point initial speed hump of your what will be a growing collection, as most of us find out. And the intent is really, well, what do you need to buy? Well, it's like what is that slot you need to fill? And if it's a tank, fantastic. Go get a tank that you like the look of.
Yep.
Forget how it's going to perform in game. It's in that space of wanting to make sure that you can use it. When something to remember with the starting sets is obviously come in various sizes and toolings and different ways of getting obviously those model kits put together. But those older kits are actually they're not bad. They're not it's not like they're not going to work. They're just slightly tooled differently. They might be a bit more fiddly But realistically, what should you buy next? Rulebook and Armies of is a great start. Making sure you got your order dice and your tokens is a great start. But really only aim to fill in your core 1,000 points, and that will serve you well. So I started with a Soviet set, and I already had pretty much everything in there, and I think I ended up adding a Flamer team and a Mortar team, and that was it. And that stood for a good couple of years. That was the core of my force.
Yeah. For me, it's I take the Games Workshop approach to this, in the sense that, so I think the Armies of is probably the best place to start. And much like a GW Codex where they'll be like, the Ultramarines or the Salamanders or the Blood Angels or whatever, you do the same thing with what you want to collect. So say you go Germans, it's like, well, what do you want from the Germans? Are you collecting the Waffen? Are you going the Africa Corps kind of thing? Because once again, you guys have approached this very logically. And for me, it's more about find something you really want and get that. For me, it was, I was sitting there, I just bought Germans because I was like, light machine guns are cool. I get more shots with Germans. Let's do that. So I bought a box of Germans. Then it was like, Pink Panther sounds cool. And so it was like, okay, well, I'll build around that and we'll see what happens around that.
Good things, apparently.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a panther in here anyway, in the questions, but we'll get to that. So, and like this is more vague, but welcome to the life of art. Just choose your next model should be something that makes you want to get your next model.
Yeah, that's a great
point. That
point.
Makes sense.
Yeah, my only caveat to that would be don't do what a lot of people do starting out is buy 5 or 6 tanks.
No, don't do
because
that.
Just don't, and you're talking to somebody who loves armored fighting vehicles.
Yeah.
Right? Don't buy 5 or 6 tanks. Unless you're specifically playing Tank Wars. My counter to that point is why? Because bolt action is not an armored fighting vehicle game. Just
play like Iron Cross or whatever.
Or literally any one of the other ones.
Yeah.
And also
Tank Wars is okay. It's not the best.
No, but my point is that if you're going to go play a war game about tanks, why play bolt action? Because,
that's fair.
Because
that's
just
fair.
the way that they're represented in bolt action is not fantastic. You don't get all the things that you love about tank combat in bolt action. So, the other flip side of that is you're going to get to use 1, maybe 2 if the other one's an armored car slot.
Yeah.
So that's more so where my only caveat would be don't just buy 5 or 6 tanks because you're not going to get to use most of them.
No. So like in summary, so you probably got a box of something that you thought was cool. Yeah. Maybe, for example, it's the Waffen or the Waffen. Yeah, I think they do a starter army for them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Buy that. Get the Armies of book. Go. I like this conflict, and then see something about that conflict that 100%. You like.
So that leads us into one of the other questions that's on the list: is how strict do I need to be on theater and uniform and detachment and that sort of thing? What was the question?
There's a few things. So we'll start. I think this one is probably the closest link to it, which is, do the uniforms matter? Which is, can I use DAC uniforms for Fashmaker?
You most certainly can.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
No.
I mean, the only person that it matters to is you.
Is you. Yeah.
Is that as a, if we're talking about bolt action, that is a constraint that you place on yourself. Yep. It's not a constraint that the system places on you.
In fact, one of the most fun things is when you go to an event. Yeah. And your desert guys are in the middle of a winter board. Yeah. And you're just like, how did we end up here, boys?
Or you've got Deutsches Afrika Korps fighting Italians in Stalingrad.
Or Manchuria.
Or Manchuria, yeah.
It's always good fun.
My only note, because I agree with both you, and my only note with this one was, if you're attending an event, check with the TO, is technically, depending on the aesthetic that you're running, they might consider that a proxy miniature purely because of the theme they're trying to do.
Yeah.
So for big multiplayer events, it's probably not 20 plus people, different tables, probably not an issue. But
most competitive tournaments also, I've got all of my US are in come from the paratrooper box. People haven't minded that I've tried them as Marines or Rangers. Most people don't mind.
No, and that's because essentially bolt action gives you the benefit of, because the war gear is what we call war gear, is actually essentially generic across. A man with a rifle is a man with a rifle is a man with a rifle. What fatigues he in that matters significantly less than the fact that he has a rifle.
Yeah.
In game terms.
In game terms,
yes,
absolutely.
Yeah, aesthetics is different. If that's
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
thing, then maybe it isn't something you want to
Yeah.
do. Maybe you do want to make sure the uniforms are specific.
But-
For me, I struggle to get through Winter Bulgarians as it is. Don't make this harder.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're starting out or if you're new to the scene and you don't know what unit types you like, don't worry that you've got Grenadiers running as early war. Don't worry that you've got SS camo, the smock guys running as Fallschirmjäger. Don't sweat it. Most people aren't going to mind. And again, if it's a constraint that you place on yourself because it's important, by all means, you do you, enjoy it. But don't feel like you're walking up to an event or tournament if you guys have the wrong uniforms, anybody's really going to care.
No,
not meaningful.
Just be clear about what they are, right?
The only time it'll matter is if you think it's insensitive. I think in this day and age, I think it's important to talk about the fact that don't put certain things on the thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessary. Even in this, for a game. Like if you want to go put it in a museum somewhere and make a big thing about it, go for it. But in a game setting where it can like really kind of mess with people, I don't think it's...
I think that's interesting, and we'll touch on it briefly. But even in scale modeling competitions or scale modeling circles, where the whole intent and purpose is to replicate what history looks like, it's a divided scene. There are people that are okay with it in the purpose and context of what it is, and there are people that are not okay with it because of what it represents. For wargaming, I sort of sit on the fence. I'm kind of like, I don't actually mind it being there. That doesn't necessarily mean I support what it represents.
And it's also not a free license.
It's also not a free license.
Like if you've got it in a couple of places where we would expect them to be, fine.
Yes.
I don't think anybody's really going to quibble about that.
No.
It's not revisionist. But if it's on every base, if it's on every model, if the guys have flags, if there's like if you have a big wall of one of the buildings and all of them are draping down the side, and that's like your army base for display, it's like, come on, man.
And that
you're crossing a line.
That's right. And that starts sending a different message at that point. You could just as easily put the German military cross flag up as opposed to the Nazi regime symbolism.
Absolutely.
You could easily do that instead, and it still says the same point without punctuating it with the known undercurrent.
Without baiting.
That's right.
You're just baiting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
For me as well, it's a public forum, especially a tournament or whatever. Like you might have people walking past. It's just
spectators.
You
for
wouldn't
example.
whip thing. You
wouldn't
whip
wear it.
Yeah, you wouldn't. You wouldn't. And that's kind of the thing. You're essentially wearing it if you do bring it out, and
That's
so.
correct.
You're going to be tarred by the brush.
Yeah.
But sorry, little side tangent there. But
I think it's a fair point to talk about. So what are some good sources then for TO&E or TO as I think it's called, the
Tables of Organization.
Thank you, because when I read TO&E, I go tournament organizer event.
When you said TO, I was like tournament. Oh, okay, I didn't see this question.
So tournament. Tables of Organization Equipment for the US, war establishments for Commonwealth.
Yes.
The German words completely escape me. That stuff. The one that I know that's most readily available is battleorder.org.
Yeah.
There is there's a German one that's escaped me. It is in German, but it's also pictorial. So if you don't read German, you can actually put it together.
Yeah.
And it's all very, very nicely laid out. I know that a lot of the US stuff is public access now from World War II, so you can look that up pretty well. I know a lot of the British stuff has been well documented. Some of the Australians are a bit hit and miss, and same with the Soviets and sort of when it comes to the major powers, they're pretty well documented. There might be a bit of a language and translation challenge there, but
I've looked at some of the Russian ones before when I was doing up my NKDV force. And some of the information that you're looking for is there. And some of it is maybe not as clear.
No.
Sorry, just remember the Military History Visualized does a lot of videos about German infantry divisions and tank divisions, armored panzer divisions.
It's honestly, Google is your friend there.
Yeah.
You can.
Well, I was hopefully you get that one step beyond. It's like rather than
okay. Let me explain. Google Scholar is your friend.
Yeah, Scholar's good. Yeah.
So like what I did, I recently put together an Arma 3 mission for paratroop drop in I can't remember what the village is called, but a really obscure thing. And I literally just typed in the name of the battle and the US Airborne Division that it was.
Yeah.
And I found an entire list in Scholar.
Yeah.
Like someone had documented it and found it. And so when I say Google is your friend, I don't mean Google search.
I mean Google Scholar.
I mean Google Scholar.
It's actually a good point. One of the things that I've used a lot of as references, from about 46 to 55, the US Army spent a considerable amount of time, money, and personnel on analyzing World War II.
Oh, really?
So there's a lot, and all of those are public access.
There you go.
So there's a lot of guys from West Point and stuff. Like full casualty reports broken down to like every man and like some of them even went down to the month.
Yeah.
And like and they're just reams and reams of A1 pages of these like stratified tables and stuff. So Google Scholar is a good suggestion.
Yeah. Or you can do what Gorcin did, go over east, find an obscure library source and sit down and look at it all weekend.
The Australian War Memorial is not an obscure library source.
Yeah,
I have a reading room. But your museums and your I think there's actually one in Perth.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it's the National Archives.
Yes, because I've got so I was like, whilst my Google foo tends to be quite strong, the reality is that libraries, national archives, museums are all actually fantastic sources to go and get background information on. You'll often find as well, by going to those places, you'll find secondary connections. So you'll find someone that, like for example, there's like we've got the RAF. Museum that's
in Bull Creek,
and there's a stack of history and stuff in there, and a stack of obviously things you can go take photos of and get things, different documents and whatever. There's actually a few of those things around Perth in particular, but they're elsewhere as well.
If you find it in Perth, you'll find it everywhere else in bucket lines. The fact we have a disproportionate amount of military kind of stuff around. I feel anyway. But yeah, everywhere else always has more.
I was walking past one of the local parks in Armidale, and I was like, "That's a 25-pounder." It's obviously been what do you call
I don't know,
de-weaponized or whatever. But
I don't know. It's Armidale.
yeah. I was like looking at it, going, "It wouldn't take much." But yeah, look, there's actually a lot of good resources. So don't ever feel that you can't find the information. It's just trying to get to that right.
An important point about resources is that, particularly if you're talking about libraries, national archives, and museums, if they don't know, they will know how to find out and where to point you.
And I can guarantee you, if you ask if you say the wrong information on Facebook, you'll find the right answer. Because I think a lot of the people who get into this are historians. Calling you out, Jackson. And so there are people who will know this because it is their passion. It is what they absolutely adore and have spent years doing. So ask questions. Ask questions and do more than just a quick Google if you really want to. Or just do a quick Google, whatever floats your boat.
There's so then there's two questions that I'm going to be cheeky to combine here. So one of them is, can I mix troop types in a platoon? And the second part is, does early, mid, or late war matter? And the reason I want to combine those is because those questions have come from I guess more of a rules mechanic point of view rather than the aesthetic side of things. And the reality is yes and no, I've realized, because I've given positive and negative answers in my response. But so can you mix troop types in a platoon, i.e. have SS with grenadiers or paratroopers and rangers in a force? There's actually no mechanic or rules unless you're using a theater selector, within bolt action that says that you can't do that. Like if you had, for example, 4 really good units that operated in completely different theaters but are all German units, you can put all 4 of them in one generic force platoon. There is no
you can have
reason.
Fallschirmjägers, Osttruppen, you can have them all mixed together.
I think.
Brandenburgers.
But does that is that kind of due to the way bolt action's structured though? Because if I put Rangers in with US Marines, I still have to choose whether they're Rangers or US Marines at a higher level than the unit choice, right?
No. So Rangers and Marines are 2 separate units.
They're a squad choice.
2 separate squads.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is there's nothing stopping you going, I'm going to build an army list. I'm going to have a squad of Marines. I'm
Yeah.
going to have a squad of Rangers.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a squad of Scouts. Like it doesn't actually matter.
Okay, I don't know if I made my point very well then. The Rangers,
Yes.
because they have, what is it, move, they've got their special
Rangers
rule.
lead the way.
Rangers
It's
lead the way.
attached to a Ranger squad.
Oh,
Yes, it's
okay.
actually on
I
the
thought
squad.
I thought it was a quote unquote national
No,
rule thing.
no.
No,
Okay,
no, it's actually attached to the squad.
there you go. Okay,
So,
there you go.
you know, and so from that point of view, there isn't anything that actually stops you doing that.
I just like to spam.
Well, and I was going to say, the question really comes down to, for that part, is like, what sort of game do you want to play?
Yeah.
Like, if you
Yeah.
want it to be more thematic, then you
Yeah.
choose of your own volition
Mm.
to make a more thematic
But again,
choice.
it's a constraint that you voluntarily place
Yeah.
on yourself. It's
Yeah.
not something that the game puts on.
I'm just, it's kind of surprising to me. I've never actually seen that. I've never seen someone mix units
I
so
mean,
freely.
I have a squad of, when I played my Marines, I had a squad of engineers.
Yeah, okay.
But ironically, the squad of engineers within the force, people don't have that same clash as much
No.
as, you know, grenadiers and
But
SS.
it is.
But it is. It's exactly that.
engineers aren't part of the U.S. Marine?
No, they come from the engineering battalion.
Yeah, but like, when,
No, but this is what I mean.
Like,
right?
yes,
this
I
is what I mean.
know.
So this putting the engineers, even though they technically come from a different area of the
Yeah,
force
yeah.
breakdown,
yeah,
people go, oh yeah, but it's, you know, it's engineers that would have potentially gone in to support them, and that's true.
yeah,
Yeah.
But you can actually do exactly the same rationale with Rangers and Marines, or Rangers and, you know, it actually doesn't matter. There's no restriction there. What people do generally is because they want to reflect what it
Yeah.
was like. They
Yeah.
put that restriction on themselves.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's actually the same with, does early, mid, late war matter?
Yes.
You know,
And I think this is kind of a two-pronged question with the early, mid, late. I
Yeah.
think there is no game mechanic that makes a distinction between early, mid, and late war units
No.
or tanks or availability of equipment, with the exception of theater selectors.
Mhm.
But again, that's a voluntary constraint by playing a theater selector.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing that prevents that. And as far as I can tell, there is no inherent late war beats early war.
yeah, that's what I was going to comment on.
Because the points are the points. If you spend 500 points on a tiger or whatever the hell a tiger is, that's 500 points that the early war guy's going to spend on something else. Yeah, he might not have a Panzerfaust, but you've got one order dice and he's just picked up 5 or 6.
Yep. And, you know, from my personal experience, I have taken early war lists and fought mid and late war armies and beat them, and sometimes beat them soundly.
Yeah.
Because how you do it, you approach it the same way you approach any other game. You play the mission. You work with the tools
Yep.
that you've got.
Yeah.
I think it really comes down to like the maybe misconception of
Yeah.
it being late beats early is
Yes.
because late has access to way more armor with higher armor values, and early has trash anti-tank.
And assault rifles and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
and
But
assault rifles.
But even then, I would challenge that there's no reason. You know,
heavy howitzer.
you're understanding,
Like,
and I'm not.
I'm
mocking on you,
just bringing
obviously.
the point
Yeah.
of view.
Yes, no, you're right.
I
But
personally have no dog in the fight.
I would call it that this is it's an established myth that
Yeah.
early war, by definition of being early, is therefore worse because that's what history propagated.
Yeah, right.
That's actually not what the game reflects.
Yeah.
You can light anti-tank guns can actually still hurt heavy tanks.
Yeah, well,
It's not easy, and you generally need to be on
plus
a
4,
flank.
plus 6. Yeah.
You generally
4,
need
plus
to,
6.
Yeah,
A heavy tank's only 10.
they can
Super
actually still
heavy.
hurt them. Super
What about a
heavy,
super heavy?
Super heavy tanks don't exist. Heavy tanks exist. What you generally have,
super heavy anti-tank gun. I'm thinking of
guns
the
that sit
gun.
on top.
Yeah, okay.
And what people get caught up in is that, but the super heavy anti-tank
I
gun
think-
goes through the other one like butter. Of course it does. and the light anti-tank gun doesn't really go through the heavy tank. Of course it doesn't.
yeah.
Would you honestly think it would be balanced if you suddenly allowed that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like you've just
You pay the points for it. I think. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't
Especially with a heavy tank.
you
those
don't get
things are-
discounts on
no.
as you go to a different period. I think the other thing is it's probably a holdover from Flames of War.
Yes.
Because the Flames of War has early,
Did
mid, late.
define it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
And you can only play with. I think you can actually only play in your period or full. Yeah, I don't. there's
Yeah,
some-
so it was technically you could still play non-period against non-period, but what they did is when they actually broke down the early mid-war, they altered the point structures of how your forces were combined
Right.
as well, and that meant that you couldn't simply take 100-point force of late war and fight 100-point force of early war.
Right,
Those because but it's 100 points each. Yeah, but because the
They
unit
points them
designations were different,
Yeah.
that actually means vastly different things.
Interesting.
It was more that you had to actually have a late war force that was closer to, I think it was like 1,000 points versus a 100-point early war force or something like that.
Jesus. All right.
But that's because they changed how they did the points calculations.
All right. Interesting. Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but either way,
I think you also see it in some other wargaming systems for World War II where they make divides between the periods. But that's a design choice on their behalf. It's not necessarily a reflection of reality.
Correct.
Some unit divisions did change firepower drastically. Some didn't. So strength and on paper versus reality and all that sort of. But the takeaway with bolt action is there's no divide between early, mid, and late war. Yeah. And there is no automatic advantage one way or another.
No. And I mean, historically, they were still using early war stuff, late war.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, those GMCs you were talking about,
1800s.
Well, and as we were saying, most of the artillery pieces that were brought on board for majority of all the countries were previously had served in wars that were still functional and maintained within the armories.
Awesome.
Yeah, high explosives doesn't give a shit what day, what year it is.
My name is Bang. Welcome. And following that through, can I take a later piece of equipment for an earlier time period? Now, so this is the question about, can I take a Panther for my DAC themed force?
Yes.
Now,
yes, you can.
Well, and like we were just saying, technically, a generic platoon doesn't stop you doing it.
Yep.
No.
And if you want to theme your army as DAC soldiers, but you like Stug 4s and you like Panthers and stuff, go nuts, man. A Panther painted in DAC would look incredible because Panthers are sexy tanks.
They are. They're very sexy.
Yep.
So go for it. Again, it's a constraint that you place yourself. There's nothing in bolt action stopping you from doing it.
And if you want to really kind of go with it, you could say, it's actually a late war army, but they're still equipped early war because they didn't get supplies, yada, yada, yada. There's plenty of justification you can make.
Heaps of scope. And the if you're asking more for that question to go, no, but what's in good taste to do?
Right.
Okay, if that was where that was coming from, then the reality is, have a chat with your opponent before you get there for the game, so you know what parameters.
Or your TO if you're in.
Or your TO. But I mean, there's plenty of examples in the German, Soviet, American, and Japanese and British lists of ranged selectors that go from like 1940 to 1943.
Yeah.
So technically, you could take that selector for some early war events or early war themed things, and then go, but I'm going to take the best armored tracked vehicle that I possibly can from 1943.
Yeah.
Like the game technically lets you do this already, so it's sort of a non-issue. Just communicate.
What else we got, Dan?
I almost didn't want to put this question in, but I think we will. What scale is bolt action?
So this is one that actually came up this morning. I'm not sure if you guys saw that one or I did.
Yeah, I saw it.
I didn't see it. What was that?
No, it wasn't like, it's just a question that comes up every now and again. And
about every 6 months.
But it seems to come in waves.
Yeah.
Like one person asks it, cool. And then like 15, 20 other people ask it all within the same 2-week period.
Yeah, right.
And fair enough. If you don't know, you don't know. It's no big deal.
If you're a new player.
So the thing about bolt action is the infantry is 28 millimeter, which is not a true scale.
Yeah.
It's not, they didn't just take the measurements and divided them by a number, which is what 135th, 148th, 156th is. They just take the measurements divided by a number. 28 millimeter is, we're going to take the approximate height of a person and we're going to shrink that down to 28 millimeter approximately, which ends up being somewhere around 150th, give or take.
Yeah.
However, because it's not a true scale, it means they can take some artistic license.
Yes.
Usually it's called heroic.
Yeah.
And so what that means is that the hands, feet, and heads tend to be slightly larger than they would be true scale. Typically, you will also see arms and legs will be wider than they would be at that scale.
Yeah.
I think part of it, a certain aspect is actually just originally like mold injection plastics.
Would make sense.
And sculpting. Pewter and that, it's made it easier if they weren't true scale.
Yeah.
It was much more manageable.
As someone who owns a resin 3D printer and has printed like a Death Guard model, which is heroic scale, and then I printed a D&D model, it was so thin.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was so scared I was going to break it because it was 28 millimeters, whereas everything Games Workshop does at the moment is like basically 32 millimeters, or they're moving in that direction.
And whereas and the part that gets really confusing for a lot of people starting out is that the vehicles are true scale 156.
Yep.
So
give or take.
Italieri's interpretation of true scale 156.
but that's also so the Italieri kits are one part, but they also did their run of resin print vehicles for a while, which was slightly undersized.
Yeah.
So you look at some of the trucks that were produced versus actual scale kits and stuff, they're a little bit different. But I would agree with you in most parts. Like the and one of the reasons the reason proportions are in place is for painting, is so you can actually pick out all the detail.
and they look
better.
They genuinely look better. They don't look more realistic, but they look better.
Yeah.
They're more appealing.
Yes.
But it's just that a lot of the Warlord kits are repurposed Italieri kits. They weren't designed and made for bolt action.
Correct.
No.
And they've started moving away from some of that now since their operational relationship has changed and they've got a bit more capacity, or a lot more capacity actually, to be fair. But yes, a lot of those Italieri kits are 156.
Yeah.
It's commonly I've got here, it was commonly accepted that vehicles are about 156 across the board. So when people are looking for other manufacturers that fit them, it's sort of in that space.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I know of people that use 148 scale vehicles because they sort of know it fits a bit better. Their crew seems to fit a bit better in. And then you get to planes, of course, where people do all sorts of things because they're just markers.
Yeah.
True 28 millimeter conversion stuff, like some of what the Perry twins have done.
Yeah.
Again, it still actually takes that approximate 28 mil height as the driver.
Yeah, for sure.
And then they just keep everything in proportion.
But I mean, I think even the Perrys, the Wargames, the Crusaders, the Eurekas, none of them are true scale.
No.
They're all heroic with different flavors, which is the beauty of it. You get, and even the metal ones are heroic 28 mil in a different way than the plastics. For sure. And I think that's probably got more to do with material and sculpting than artistic license, so to speak. It's kind of they went, this works better in pewter and this works better in plastic, so we're going to do that. But don't get, if you're a scale aficionado and you're an individual who's armed with calipers, sorry.
I can also guarantee you, like, people, another big question you see on the forums is, these guys don't look the same as these guys. Their scales are off. I guarantee you, once everything's on the table, you won't be able to tell the difference. It's the 3-foot rule.
Not negatively.
You'll
just be like, those sculpts look cool and those sculpts look different and also cool.
Yeah.
You're not going to be like, but the diameter of that guy's bicep is a fourth the diameter of all of those guys' biceps. It's like,
he's just a smaller guy.
They just didn't get their protein in.
Yeah,
right?
different build.
Where it makes a difference is if you are actually trying to put a different scale miniature in your force. So like a proper different scale. So if we're
like a Primaris Marine.
Or 20 mil even. 20 mil sometimes
smaller,
can be enough to because it looks smaller at that point because the entire miniature is smaller in its dimensions.
Yeah.
As opposed to simply, it's a 28 size miniature who's a little bit more buff or a little bit more weight.
Yeah.
Yep.
That being said, though, if you want to play bolt action with your friends at any other scale, do
that's
whatever
fine.
the hell you want.
We do it all the time.
It's your game, it's your table. Play it however the hell you want.
The local group that play bolt action, Fiat
VC on the trail. They play 172nd.
Yeah, 172nd.
They actually have the same problem. Their vehicles are 172nd, but the infantry is 20 millimeter. Which is 20 millimeter heroic.
Yeah.
Yep.
That makes sense. But they play that, have a lot of fun. I've yet to get a game in. I'm really excited. I got the guys.
It's worthwhile. It's pretty good.
We'll key you in.
Please.
Yep. Yeah, it's good. Why does this tank or gun have this particular profile, i.e., no FG42s are defined within the rules. Bren and MG34 have similar profiles because they're both LMG style weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably want to kick this one off.
Go for it.
Frankly, because they wrote it that way, is the sort of the catch cry of where it starts.
Yep.
There is, and I think in certainly some of the commentary that's been provided by Alessio Calvatore and some of the people who have done inputs to those designs is keep calm. It's just a game, and we've actually made some of these changes for simplicity and speed of play.
Yeah. The main core of that one is because bolt action's not a simulation.
Yep.
Yes.
It's also not trying to be a simulation.
No.
They've just placed brackets around weapons
Yeah.
and weapon types and armor values.
Yeah.
Because it's a game, because it's fun, and it makes it fun and it keeps it fun.
Yeah.
And it absolutely does. I mean, I whine and moan about like armor values and that sort of stuff. But I genuinely don't care. I don't think it actually detracts from bolt action. I don't think it makes the game worse. It just has a different scope.
Excellent.
Yep.
I have something to add to this from a different point of view because Tyler likes being different. So for me, yes, rules as written, brackets around things because it's not trying to be a simulator. Also, a machine gun shooting you is a machine gun shooting at you. Like, yes, different cycle rates, different bits and pieces, caring for bits and equipment and all that. If lead is flying towards you, it is lead flying towards you.
Yeah.
Unless you've got Kevlar on or something, which engineers did. I'm sidetracking myself. Yeah. So I think it doesn't.
Machine guns and machine gun, mortars and mortar.
It doesn't bother
Gun's a
me
gun.
at all.
Yeah.
And anyone who does it gets very, very upset about it. I think the chances are they're trying to make what they have better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not certain that that's completely fair. Like, there is absolutely something to be said for the fact that a 25 pounder is only a light howitzer in terms of HE charge.
Yeah.
Like that does not make much sense considering that there are all of the other weapon profiles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily just making it better. It's just like, well, that doesn't represent the 25 pounder, which is, yes, you are correct, but we're not trying to represent every type of gun.
That's right.
Yep.
We are just trying to put them into loose categories so we can play a nice, fun, casual Hollywood simulator.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think that's the key part. So, I won't shy away from the fact that bolt action has some inconsistencies in how certain things have been categorized. The 25 pounder is a classic example of that. But the reality is that if they were to have actually spent the time to accurately categorize every piece of equipment within the nation's forces, we probably still wouldn't have a rule set to be playing.
Correct. Yep.
Because that's a mammoth task. And the problem is when you start down that path, you can't stop because you've made the decision to classify everything so specifically. So what they did is go the opposite way and went, we want to be able to produce a rule set where people can play games.
Yeah.
And we want those games to have an element of speed play. That's always been a big thing with Alessio, Rick Priest. It's all about, getting your miniatures on the table and being able to play a game fast.
Yep.
Not that that's the only reason, but that's certainly a big one. And so, we're just going to categorize these things into the loose categories and put some brackets around what we think these rough genres look like. And you'll also notice that if you're coming at it from a point of view of, the 25 pounder should be a medium howitzer instead of a light.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping you taking a medium howitzer. Just don't take the 25 pounder.
But then you don't get the AT shell.
Oh, you don't get the AT shell. Well, you could just take a bigger howitzer or a big, there's plenty of alternatives. If what you're complaining about
and look,
is,
if that's really your shtick, you can be like, at a homebrew game, be like, hey, can I take this as? And I'm sure most people will be like, yes. Or, maybe petition the rule people. Maybe be like, hey, I think 25 pounder should be this. And you know what? Maybe next edition, it will be.
No, I think, as far as I know, the only thing that Alessio has relented to on that front is the number of pivots on tracked vehicles.
Yeah.
As far as the two things that I know that he's gone, we got that one wrong, was there's no fast vehicles, there's only slow.
Yeah.
So slow being the special rule.
Yeah.
There's no fast equivalent. And that the tracked and wheeled should have the opposite number of pivots.
Yeah.
That's as far as I know, that's the only thing.
Because a tracked thing shouldn't.
The only one that I think would possibly add to that list is that medics and spotters can't be used to fire vehicle weaponry because that was a loophole for a little bit. And I remember when that came through and I was like, I sent an email about that not too long ago. It wasn't necessarily just my email, but I'm glad other people had that question too.
Yeah.
Because it was definitely a loophole.
What else we got, Dan?
All right. So we've talked a little bit about uniform colors already, so I'm not going to repeat that particular question. And we've got two last generic ones. How do I find people to game with in my area?
So my biggest suggestion on that one is actually hop on the bolt action groups on Facebook.
Absolutely.
And then and if you don't know, just search bolt action. It's the main one that comes up. There's a bolt action Bolt Action International, and there's one for a lot of the countries. I know that there's one for America, the UK, and Australia.
Yep.
And you'll find state. It breaks down to states.
And that is going to be the next one. Is go to the state level and go from there.
And then city. And then suburb.
It does get quite quite intense like that, which is really, really good.
My other suggestion would have been the Warlord Games Discord.
100%.
And do the same thing.
100%.
Depending on your age bracket, Discord's generally going to find like younger people, sort of mid to late 20s and younger. Bolt Action, you'll find a larger age range. You won't find, but if the group that if you yourself are not somebody who's into either one of those spaces, it's probably worth just dipping your toe in and having a poke around just briefly and see what comes out of it.
I know a lot of people who don't use Facebook for anything but like just looking at the war game stuff. Like some of them don't even have their real names. They don't have profile picture. Like they don't care. No. They're just there to join the group, find out where the local club is, or have a conversation.
Ironically, it's about the social interaction.
Funny that. Funny that.
I think the other one probably for me is one of the best ways to find who in your local area plays or where you can go to play is actually seek out and find where your local clubs are or where your groups of players are. So numerous times I've been talking about games that I've played with groups of people, and someone who's been either in the store with me at the time or passing by has actually rocked up and go, "Oh, so where do you actually play that? Where do you do that? Where do you go do these things?" And I go, "Oh, well," and then it's on me as part of the community to also do the right thing by that person to go, "Well, actually, I play with these group of people. So we're a club down at Rockingham Historical Gamers. But there's also Outpost. There's also Crags. There's also, and listing off all the different groups that I know of where they might be able to go, because I
might fit their schedule a bit better.
I don't know where this person
location wise, it might be better for them. I got an old school one for you. Because I see it at Tactics.
The notice board.
The notice board.
Yeah, but I think with that question, you might not even know what your friendly local game store is that stocks Bolt Action.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah. And so a quick, just asking the question, throw a couple of things around to validate whether there are people there or not. Certainly a Google search for your local area, is generally a pretty good starting point to give you an idea of what that next contact point is to ask.
Yeah.
But largely, if you are on Facebook, that's arguably one of the best places to get started.
For sure. What else we got, buddy?
Quite a few.
Last question? Last generic question?
Last generic question, and then we've got some of the other ones. How much terrain should be on a table, and what type?
Lots.
It depends. But I find, coming right back round, the more terrain there is, the more cinematic it is for me. Like coming back to that
I think it also just makes a better game.
It also makes for a better game.
Both tactically and romantically.
Yeah.
Romantically, I like that. Yeah, you're not wrong. I think more is better.
Yeah, you cannot have enough.
No.
Have a good mix of terrain. Even if you're theming yourself to an urban one, have a little like plaza or courtyard with only light cover, so you're not just constantly doing the hard cover, extra protection stuff.
Unless you want to do that, but that's a choice in itself.
Yeah. But in terms of terrain types, have lots.
Yeah.
Lots of different types. Have lots of different terrain on the table. The terrain rules aren't too complicated.
No, they're not.
They're pretty straightforward. If it stops a bullet, it's hard cover. If it doesn't stop a bullet, it's light cover. That's pretty much the breakdown for it.
That's a very good summary, actually.
That's literally what it says in the rule book.
So now just wait for the point where you realize that bricks don't stop bullets.
Yeah, they do.
Depends on.
World War II bullets should be fine.
I've seen a few of those fired off. I'm not so sure. It also depends on the quality of the brick, of course.
Yeah, but getting off topic there, I think
it's not a simulation, Dan.
Yeah, there we go.
I think terrain-wise, and the best thing about it is you can do everything. Like you can have a jungle board and just fill it full of trees, and it will
lots of terrain.
Yeah,
lots of terrain.
It'll still functionally be the same kind of thing as a ruin, kind of.
So I think from me, I have two views. 99% of me views it as a player, 1% of me views it as a selfish TO that doesn't care about anybody else. The selfish TO part is just everyone's playing on a desert with one palm tree because it's easier to organize. But that's obviously by the by. The 99% of me for the player is, a board with more terrain is better, 100% better. From minimum for me is that at least a third of your board on any cut version of how you want to spread that needs to have terrain on it of each different level.
That's a good point. I'd say a third to 50% is kind of the sweet spot.
50% is ideal for me because it means that you basically won't have a 6-inch gap really of any type across the board without either a wall, a field, a marsh, a house, woods. But the reality is within that terrain that you're putting on the board, you should also have a further breakdown of a third of that being line of sight blocking considerably. So it's forces you to maneuver rather than just shoot over the hay bales. You should have a third of area terrain, so large chunks that you need to move around or can take cover in. And a third of that should then be obstacles like hedges, walls, linear walkways, terraced columns, or something like that. If you can get something approximating those averages, generally your terrain is going to be very good in the game. If you can approach the 50%, it's going to be excellent. It's going to be really good.
This isn't a 40k tournament, so don't be afraid to make it look cool too. One of the best things about bolt action setting up terrain is the fact that asymmetry looks better than symmetry.
It looks more real.
Yes.
Yeah. It might be counterintuitive to put a road through to the middle from one side or the other, but it kind of ends up in a plaza, and then it forces different tactical decisions and makes it more, as you said, romantic. I think because it's not just this is a box. Let's fight over these boxes. I'm fighting over this hedgerow and this small square in the middle of France because that's where I am.
My one suggestion for that would be if you've got completely no idea, your total blank slate. You haven't played a lot of war games. You're new to this whole thing completely. My suggestion would be look at some RTS maps.
Yes.
So specifically Company of Heroes 1 and 2. Look at some of the maps for that. Don't copy them one to one, but just get a quick feel of the maps. And you'll notice it's like, okay, there's some roads here that kind of bisect the map a little bit. There's big wide open spaces in that sort of bit. But if I look at the wide spaces, there's craters for cover and there's some covered lit around. And then there's big buildings that block my line of sight, but I can put some guys into it. Just the reason I say that instead of some of the other World War II is because the scale's a bit different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't look at something like Steel Division for terrain because it runs very differently. But something like Company of Heroes, you can just Google that, like Company of Heroes maps, and just look at some of them. That'll give you an idea. The terrain density is about right for bolt action.
Yeah.
And just take a loose inspiration for that and you'll be on the money.
There you go. There's an excuse to go play Company of Heroes.
You're welcome.
I love it. I would agree with that. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Aerial photographs is another one, but I think the Company of Heroes one is actually going to be
just because they're
fit for purpose.
Curated for gaming.
Yeah. Someone has been paid money to make that.
There are some maps where I could go, somebody was paid money to create that. Anyway.
All right.
Desert palm trees. Okay, so that takes us through all the generic questions that we've noticed. And now we're going to move into some of the solicited questions that we asked for. We're just going to do a quick break. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We have our wonderful non-sponsor Allen's snakes that we're enjoying. So we've got these solicited questions that we brought on from our group. We're not going to answer necessarily all of them because a couple can be covered in generic statements, but we'll go through those other ones first. This one came in from Jackson. What is the best use of your artillery slot?
It's going to be super predictable for anybody who's played a little bit of bolt action. Howitzer. Howitzer, 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 howitzer. Every goddamn day of the week. The reason is because if you take a medium howitzer, you can damage up to a medium tank. So you don't need the AT gun. You can also utterly demolish everything smaller than a medium tank with a medium howitzer. And you can also demolish buildings. You can demolish infantry. You can do indirect. It is hands down way better than an anti-tank gun. There is something to be said for like rapid fire anti-aircraft guns, like flak varings and that sort of thing. Or I think the US have a 37 millimeter auto.
Yeah.
There is something to be said for that, but I will still take a howitzer over that any day of the week.
Would you ever take an 88?
The reason I would take an 88 is because it can fire indirect.
Okay.
And it's a 360 pivot.
And it's a 360 pivot. So
That's pretty
it's the reason it has most of the strengths of a howitzer with the advantages of a rotating platform.
Yeah, right.
So the thing about the howitzer is that it's direct and indirect. And I think an 88 is a 3-inch template.
Yeah.
It's a super heavy.
Yep.
So you're basically taking a medium howitzer that can function as an AT gun.
Okay.
Right? But if I was taking an 88, it would still be for its howitzer capabilities, and the anti-tank would be a special bonus on
nice
top.
bonus, yeah. Okay.
And 90% of the time when I've watched an 88 being shot, they're going, how was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
That 3-inch
HE,
template.
yeah,
Because the 3-inch template's amazing.
Yeah.
I think for myself, it still depends to me on the theme or list that I want to design. If I was going in for a pickup game or a generic event without any particular think so, I'd do the same thing, medium howitzer every time. The Ziz 3 multi-profile approach is also extremely optimistic. However, there are times where I simply won't fill that slot and I will do something else.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So if there's something you said, if you're taking a full mechanized list, howitzer is going to slow you down, or motorized. Yep. Reasonable. But I think if you are going to fill your artillery slot, let's call that a howitzer slot.
Let's be honest, it is.
Yeah. Just take the howitzer.
Yeah, fair enough.
Fine, you could take a multi-launcher particularly if you're expecting a spam list, because if you hit one unit, there's multiple 6s you're trying to roll. But I would, even in that case, I would still more often than not take a howitzer than a multi.
Yeah, fair enough. It's weird because the only time, I see it almost as a tax for myself. So I don't really have much of an opinion on this. But you've convinced me. I think I want to try medium howitzer next time.
Or any howitzer. I've taken a light howitzer more often than I've taken a medium.
Me too, actually.
Generally, just because it's the same points as a mortar, but you can direct fire it.
Why not? Yeah.
It's the same points as a medium mortar with a direct fire. Yeah.
There is something to be said for anti-tank guns if you're comfortable that you've got your other HE things covered, be it on vehicles plus mortars plus maybe Japanese with
launch mines,
light mortars, mortars in their squads. Yeah. Possibly, but that's a pretty hard approach to hold.
What else we got, Dan?
Can you build an effective list around shirkers? Now, for those that don't remember what shirkers is as a rule, essentially every pin that you have counts as double pins. That's particularly bad on inexperienced troops.
Yes, which it mostly is on.
Pretty much all of them are inexperienced.
No. Just because for you to do it, you enter this absurd realm of cheese that nobody wants.
Yeah.
Because you arm them with pistols and they're at 1 point a model, and you can have 1,000 of them.
Yes.
Or actually, no, you still only have 5 troop slots. So if you got 5 and 20, you can have 100 of them.
Unless you're playing multiple platoon, but yes.
Just don't.
But I think the question being whether you can build an effective list. I think for me, I read that question, I was like, define effective. Yeah. Is it effective in annoying your opponent or the TO?
Yeah.
Yes. But is it actually going to be effective at you making sure that your guys can, considering that every single one of your guys is going to be wounded on 2s or 3s now because any penetration bonuses are going to just wreck you.
Yeah.
And they will have ample targets to shoot with minimum modifiers. They won't have to deal with your guys in cover until they need to, and that's fine. But they can charge you in cover and essentially wipe out your entire squad. They don't care. I would play against that list very differently to defeat it, and it wouldn't be about shooting. It'd be about getting up in your face and just punching you repetitively.
I play aggressive anyway, and if I played against them in a table of shirkers, I would play even more aggressive.
Yes.
I would be like Eastern Front got me some German chocolate aggressive.
Yeah.
I
will be putting this to the test when I finally make my partisans. That's all I'll say on the matter.
All right.
Great.
Fact part 2.
So we'll come back and tell you how that went. How do you play in a situation where you are versus a force, so fighting against a force, or a unit type that you've never seen on the battlefield before, or you didn't expect to see on the table? So all the classic stuff that people think is unexpected to come up or is just not that good. And so heavy tanks that are in early war, KV1, all cavalry lists, mechanized builds, or other weird and wonderful things. There's a comment about Norwegians here, but I'm just going to let that slide.
This is going to be unpopular. Just ask your opponent how their list works. If they don't have to tell you.
It's a bit of a dick move that they don't, though.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have to give away all the secrets.
No.
And I don't necessarily expect them to. But just be like, I've never come across a mechanized cavalry Norwegian list.
Yeah.
I don't know which part of it's mechanized and which part of it's cavalry, but it's both. How do I... Yeah, that was a comma. I was stacking adjectives, not separate lists. How do I, how does your army work? What's the shtick? Just ask them. And if they're not forthcoming, just try to take a minute or two and be like, okay, what can cavalry do? Okay, they can move, they can recce. Cool. Okay, so they can move and they can recce. They move 9, recce. They're tough fighters.
And they charge 18.
Okay, all right.
Ow.
I need to break line of sight a lot because you can only charge units that you can see. And I need to shoot them after they've moved where possible, or I need to put something in ambush and then shoot at them with something.
Ambush is looking pretty good.
So how do I defeat recce? Okay, like that. That's how I defeat cavalry lists. How do I defeat charging lists? You try to find the thing that you do know. So are they going to shoot? No. Okay, so the things that I'm going to do against a shooting army is not going to work. Are they going to try to get into close combat? Yeah. What do I do against close combat? How do I defend it? Am I a close combat force? Sweet. We're about to let the dice decide.
I see your crazy shenanigans, and I raise you blood curdling charge.
I think a lot of the time it is just suck it and see. And that's part of learning. And the important thing to know is if you do happen to lose, you learn infinitely more from a loss than you do from a win. To quote, no, I've got nothing.
No, that's all right.
That's it.
And I think so for me personally, I actually love those sorts of games because it's very rare for me not to have encountered something within bolt action. So it's
sorry, Dan.
It's a little bit. Okay. Sorry. Let me wind that back. What I mean is because of the playtesting that I've done for all sorts of different missions that I've created, I have dry run most types of lists or builds. So when someone does something that's a different combination I haven't thought of, it's quite refreshing. I then have to redo all my pack stuff potentially, which is not refreshing. But it also
refreshing for the pack, though.
Refreshing for the pack. Improvement. It also might be a reason for me to create a custom mission or think about creating custom missions where such a unit combination or something that was seen to be improbable or non-effective gives the player a benefit. So we might then see more of it. But generally, use it as a learning experience because if you have never faced it before, there's a good chance that you're going to judge it wrong. And that's okay, but learn.
I've been watching some Day 9 recently. There's a guy on YouTube who came up in StarCraft era.
Yeah.
And he does this great snippet where people StarCraft's it's a solved game. Well, obviously there's a massive amount of mechanics, but the most efficient strategies and units have been long figured out.
Yeah.
And so one of the questions I got asked was but what if somebody does this thing that they don't expect them to? And he thought about it for a really long time, and he's like, just kill them. It's the most effective thing is the thing that tends to come up the most often.
Yeah.
So if they're doing something you've never seen before and you've played a few games, they're doing the less efficient, less effective thing. Just kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kill them. And it's and it's a good point. With any one of those lists, if the unit's dead, it doesn't matter what special rules it has. Just kill it.
That's so true.
It's a very elegant solution to an elegant problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does the crew, that HMG crew, think of LMGs? It is. Yeah, sorry, that was a bit. Think of LMGs within infantry squads. So Michael's advised that he thinks that they're currently overcosted, even as someone who mainly plays Germans.
Yeah.
And what about potential fixes? That's an interesting one. So I might
some history, some context. LMGs used to have one less shot, or
Correct.
all machine guns used to have one less shot in V1,
Yeah.
and they upgraded them for V2,
Yeah.
and they maintained the German national rule.
Mm.
So LMGs used to be 3 in V1, and they went up to 4 in V2, and the points didn't change.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Did
so
you
instead
play
of
V1?
no, it's just I know
I
this
did
is a specter that has haunted the bolt action community.
Yeah. it's so I'll go into my answer and I'll read it verbatim because I think that
Go
will
for it.
actually allow it. So I don't take LMGs for their point efficiencies. I like them and I take them because they were actually there. So for me, it is a aesthetic historical choice. But I don't actually agree that these are broken and in need of fixing.
Well, I don't think his point was that they were broken in terms of powerful. I just think his point was that the question was, or more so the frame of reference was, they are overcosted. How do we make them not overcosted?
Yeah, and
So-
sorry, I was using broken there as a not necessarily to say the game breaking broken, but as simply as what they do. Then I don't think they're broken and need a thing. They're definitely point inefficient, which was my next.
Right.
My
So
next part.
so I guess the question is, how do you make them points efficient?
Yes, and short of just ruling that you're dropping 5 points per LMG or 10 points per LMG across a force,
Yeah.
so for example, I could easily run an event and I just go, please be aware that there's a 10-point discount on LMGs for all armies.
It's actually a good point because everybody complains about vehicle cheese wagons, and all of their MMGs are 15 points, and
Yeah.
their LMGs are 10 points
Yeah.
Yeah, LMGs are 20 points
on a
on
a-
infantry.
no
Yeah.
on a
sorry,
cheese
you mean on
wagon.
a cheese wagon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you look
Yeah.
at the Stuart,
Yep.
2 forward-facing LMGs is 20 points
Yes.
for the pair,
For
not
the pair.
individual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So, you know,
And-
is
and-
that
And that's where I suppose you run into that question of like, so if I fiddle with this little gear over here to try and make
Yeah,
something
yeah.
that works better in this specific scenario, what does it actually do to all the other big gears? And one of those would be cheese wagons that we currently have might also then go, well, hang on, all machine guns have just got a reduction in points. Why
Yeah.
don't we get a reduction in points? No, you're hideously undercosted already. That doesn't matter. You gave it to them.
Yeah. For me, I'd say you got to try an event. I reckon match infantry machine gun costs to vehicle machine gun costs.
You
So
definitely
10
see
points,
more
10
machine
points for an
guns.
LMG, which is a horrifying thing to say.
I know. That's pretty scary.
10 points, or because you can't.
Well,
I mean,
but you can't actually get. So the people that were buying LMGs right now,
Yeah.
like myself, they're actually still going to buy those LMGs. They were doing it anyway.
Yeah.
We just get a slightly bigger points buff to put somewhere else. In
What-
the list.
What I think you're going to see more of I think you're going to see more dual LMG squads being taken.
For those that can, yes.
Yeah, for those that can.
Well-
I think what you'll see. Sorry, Tyler. I think what you'll see is the 5-man double LMG
Yeah.
section will become a staple.
Yes.
That's what I run anyway. What did you... It's happened again. The plug's been pulled.
Well, because
Oh, yeah. So if it goes down to 10 points, would you be happy to then drop the amount of shots it gets to 3 across the board?
because of what I do for a day job, one variable at a time.
Because of what I do as a TO, one variable at a time.
I think it's just because that brings an LMG to the same points currently without changing anything else, just going from 20 points to 10 points, makes it the same points as a BAR. Except the BAR has a tax that you need 2 riflemen. Right. For you to get 4 shots with BAR, you need 2
BARs.
rifles. Yeah, 2
Yeah.
BARs, 2 riflemen.
Yeah.
You can't just give one guy 2 BARs.
No, but you're...
But with an LMG, you lose one of the loaders. You lose a shot.
Yeah.
So 2 BARs is a net gain of 2 shots. One LMG is a
Yeah.
net gain of 3 shots.
Yeah.
Or 2
Right.
shots, actually.
I also think there's
So
that actually makes sense then.
yeah, I would say it would make an LMG cost the same amount as 2 BARs.
Yeah. You were just sitting there and you both looked very scared at the idea of 10-point LMGs, and I will admit my eyes lit up. But
But this is why we work through things
Yeah.
and we have conversations.
So
And we don't knee-jerk reaction to things. Go, 10 points LMGs are broken.
banned.
All right. Fuck it, try it.
yeah.
I'm here for it.
Look, I think it might be something that I run in 2022 early as something just as a trial. But I think the other thing to consider is moving that small wheel over
Yeah.
here. do I adjust other things as well?
Mm,
So,
yeah.
for example, it is criminal that a heavy machine gun costs 25 points.
Oh yeah.
It is criminal.
Yeah, that's
Oh yeah.
So the potential of what would happen if I was spitballing this right now to draft it, bearing in mind that if we make an LMG a 10-point upgrade, it's the same cost as another man, and you're getting additional shots on top.
Yep.
So people that say LMGs are overcosted, I go, they're kind of not, because you've got your loader and your regular man. So it's at regular, that's a 20-point cost, plus 20 points for an LMG, and you're firing 4 shots.
So your position is that they're actually not overcosted at 20
point
points.
equivalent. It's actually point equivalent, because
Okay.
I can take 4 men to get 4 shots for 40 points, or I can take 2 men with an LMG and get 4 shots.
So
for
do you
40
change
points.
the price
For
of vehicles
20
then?
points. Oh, right.
No,
so
because I've got to pay
you've
for the 2 bodies.
got to pay for the 2 bodies.
Yeah, so it's actually points equivalent.
Right.
Now, what people look at, of course, is no, but the total squad gets less shots if I take an LMG. But now you're putting more points on the line. So it's yes.
So it's tricky. I think it's tough to answer this question without addressing other attempts at solving
Correct.
it. So I believe the Juggernauts have players pack, I think is what they call it. They have a bolt action rules change thing.
Yeah.
And one of the things they do is they make machine guns auto pin stuff.
Yes.
And
I
that
did
to me
see
is horrifying.
Yeah.
Is just not necessarily because of the machine guns, but just because machine guns are pretty scary to be shot at by, but so is a howitzer landing anywhere in your area of operations.
Yeah.
Like, are you going to auto pin stuff because you miss with a howitzer shot
Yeah.
or mortars? Because you don't drop one mortar around like we do in bolt action.
Bolt action, yeah.
You drop fire missions and your distance and direction is, while not spot on, it's usually within QE, and it is a suppression effect. So
That's right.
why aren't we auto pinning with mortars?
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with the principle that machine guns are aerial weapons.
Yeah.
And I can see the logic behind it. I just think that logic is a very dangerous one.
Yeah, it certainly changes up the meta. I'm sitting here going,
That's
all right, I'm taking all the machine guns I can get my hands on.
Yeah.
I don't care if I hit you. I'm going to take everything as an experience, just put all, because pins win.
Can you
And
imagine a
that-
cheese wagon?
That's right. Yeah.
Hull, gun, pintle. That's 3 units automatically pinned before you've rolled the dice.
Yeah. And that's where it's, like we said, we'd have to do it the right way. So I think potentially the better fix is, what if we leave all the points costs alone, with the exception of that, even for a heavy machine gun.
Yeah.
Medium machine gun costs and medium machine gun figures of dice. We'll leave those the same. Maybe with an LMG, maybe we simply go, the LMG category is different. Maybe we reduce the points and the number of shots back down, but you're getting a lower number of shots on the return of investment.
Yeah.
Maybe we do the first LMG for every squad is free. Maybe we do.
Interesting.
There's different ways to do it.
The other idea that I've heard is D3 pins.
Yeah.
Which Alessio had play tested and it was way too oppressive.
Yeah.
D2 pins has been suggested a couple of times, and I think it's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I see the merit in D2 pins. Alessio's counter to that was, it's basically a 4+ and half the time nothing happens, which is just a roll of 50% of time is wasted.
Yeah.
Here's an idea that I had, is that it's a little bit like shit to explain, but I think once people get it, that we can talk about it.
All right.
That machine guns apply additional pins for every pair of shots past the first 2. So an LMG has 4 shots. If you get 2 hits, if you get 1, 2, or 3 hits, that's 1 pin. If you get 4 hits, that's 2 pins. And so a machine gun is capable of 5 shots, so it can still only dish out 1 extra pin on that 4th hit.
Yep.
But a German machine gun can dish out 3 pins because it can hit 6 times.
Yeah.
It's German medium machine gun. So
I think it's there's also, because that's certainly an intriguing idea. A bit of math, well, not. It'll be a conversion.
It's more bookkeeping.
Yeah, bookkeeping
and
based.
I'm not a fan of bookkeeping when I play war games, so there might be some better way of doing that. But it gives that +1, gives it a really nice mechanic. Where we go, my medium machine guns can potentially dish out 3 pins. You're not adding an extra roll because you're still rolling to hit.
Yeah.
And you still get this nice, really cool moment where you're like, how many hits do I get? And then you also figure out how many pins you get at the same time.
I think there's that. Yeah, because I'm intrigued to try that out. But, one of the other ones that I've heard of is your ability to hit and deal pins increases with the more machine guns that are actually in the squad. So if you have 2 light machine guns in a squad, normally you'd only generate 1 pin as a stock standard.
Yeah.
But if you put 2 machine guns in a squad, you're actually going to deal 2 pins. So as in, if you hit, you will deal 2 pins, irrespective of number of hits. Now, again, pros and cons with that, because what people have to remember is, while that sounds fantastic because you feel your light machine guns are useless, you have to remember that if you've got 4 squads with 2 light machine guns each,
you've pinned something out.
You've pinned something out. All 4 of them shoot at the one thing. You only need 1 hit out of 8 dice to pin something out off each of those squads, and that actually becomes a bigger problem than the fact that you're paying an extra 10 points for your light machine gun.
And now Snap 2 becomes horrifying.
Oh yes, genuinely. Yeah, Tyler's just got what me and Gorcin got like ages ago.
Can you you just take Americans, right? You get 3 machine guns. You take any one of the suggestions that we had, D2 pins, or I call them exploding pins on a medium machine gun, right? You just snap 2, and there's at least 6 pins you've just applied.
Yeah,
that's a cool unit that just got prep bombarded. Delete.
Yeah.
Far out.
Yeah.
So anyway,
that's oppressive,
isn't it?
So
now,
little cog, big outcomes.
Yeah. So there's like the way you do that on a cheese wagon, for example, is you just say only you get the maximum number of pins possible from one machine gun. So if you've got a medium machine gun that fires 6 shots and 20 other machine guns, you can still only get 3 pins. Just as you would normally from one unit firing.
What if they shoot at different units, Gorcin?
Well, then we're same as now. If you split fire with a hull and an MMG, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Or if you had 2 howitzers on one vehicle, you split fire. We're playing Red Alert 2 in Bolt Action. Let's go.
So flame tanks.
No. Well, they exist.
They do.
Yeah.
So I think.
So I think what we've realized is that we can't solve this in
not in the time we have right now.
No, we are scientists about it because we have hypotheses and they need experiments.
Yeah, we've got to test them.
We got to set all vehicle infantry MG costs to vehicle costs is one of them. The other one is we try some variant of D2, D3 exploding pins, auto pins.
There's a bit more to go on that one. What do you guys think about cavalry or motorbike mounted infantry and them dismounting from advance? So essentially what we're talking, I misinterpreted this question originally, but it's the ability for those units when they advance, they can actually dismount from their, now you give up essentially the fact that you're then on a horse or on a motorcycle. But why don't we see it? If you're
holding an objective, if you've got them on an objective and they're holding it.
Yep. Why don't we see them necessarily doing that dismount? And I'd be cool to hear more perspective on it. So obviously in the Perth scene right now, we don't have many people that run full cavalry forces or full motorbike forces or even specific units of those.
We've got a couple of players who do it. Yeah, I think Liam's well renowned for his cavalry forces.
Yep.
I don't know, Michael's run a few cavalry lists as well.
Yep. And I suppose my original answer is irrelevant because I misinterpreted the question, but I think the benefit of those units, the cavalry and the motorbikes, is the fact that they are mobile. And so you don't want to give up that mobility advantage unless you are forced to do so.
Yeah.
Now, you can be forced to do so through various different impacts. If they ever voluntarily choose to go down, for example, auto dismount. So if you zoom in on them with a howitzer, then, unless they choose to recce away, for example, with their escape reaction, and they choose to go down, it's fine. It's possible to get a motorbike squad or a cavalry squad out in the open where wrecking away actually isn't going to help them. They may choose then to go down, so that'll put them down. Oftentimes when they're hit with something, I find that I'm like, that would be when I would go to advance and start moving tactically towards cover. But there's no benefit to doing that with them most of the time, because if they have moved in and got hit, you move them in because you're going to charge next turn. You're going to make that 18-inch run. So you whatever, it doesn't matter if there's 1 left, 2 left, 3 left. You're going to send them in to cause that distraction.
Yeah. I wonder if I suspect that there's 2 parts to this as somebody who hasn't played any cavalry. I suspect there's 2 parts. One, it's everybody I've spoken to that has any cavalry units have said that it's either horrendously expensive or it's not. It's more expensive than a normal list, and it also requires a lot of cutting and fitting of plastic
Yeah.
units. So I know.
So you mean monetarily expensive?
Monetarily expensive.
Yeah.
And I think, and then to replace them out with other riflemen is
You essentially got to buy a unit twice.
yeah. And then the flip side of that is, I don't know if everybody who has cavalry started with a cavalry list or not. So it might actually not be a real problem. They had an infantry army and then they decided to do a cavalry one, and then you could just swap out the
I
models.
feel like that's how most people do it. I don't think many people rock up to bolt action for the first time and go cavalry.
And then the other part of it, I think it's kind of a sunk cost thing.
Yeah, it is.
Because I mean, how many points is a horse upgrade?
It depends.
But it's usually a couple of points per model,
it's not
right?
huge.
And then they go, no, I bought these guys specifically,
Because
veterans,
they're on
fanatics,
horses.
and tough fighters on horses. Like, I bought them for that purpose of getting there and punching stuff.
To be disgusting.
It feels like defeat dismounting them.
Yeah.
I suspect that has a fair amount of play to it. I would challenge that. I think as a general blanket rule, not a bad idea, but don't get blindsided by that. Because I think if you're playing an objective-based game and you're playing to win, if you have nothing to stand on that objective except your horses and they're in hard cover, just advance and dismount.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're not going to be moving, that means you're not going to be taking advantage of that mobility anyway.
Yeah. And all that can happen with the recce is they can bait the recce, right?
Yeah.
Get you off the objective and then claim it, and then you have to assault, and then it's a 50-50. Now, you might want to play that. That's a perfectly legitimate way of doing it.
Yep.
But also, like, if you've got a medium-sized squad of vets, like 8, and they just go down and they stay down, you're shedding D3 pins a turn, you're going to be impossible to hit, you're going to be impossible to kill if you're in cover on an objective. There might be an opportunity where you shoot back, but I think more often than not is you bought the cavalry for that purpose.
Yes.
And if you didn't get a full list of cavalry, then you actually even can't afford to take them off the horse.
That's right.
Or off the motorbike.
Yeah.
Because you can't just replace them with another motorbike or a cavalry unit. You got them specifically for that purpose. They're your mobility force. You can't, it's very difficult for you to convince yourself to let them dismount.
Yeah. So that's we've then got a couple of other questions which I'll just comment on briefly, and these are the more generic ones. Are talking about some of them are a little bit baity as well. Like, what's the best tank in the game for 1,000 points?
And why is an inexperienced Panther? Finish the question, Dan.
Wait, yeah.
It isn't an experienced Panther because Shermans are prettier.
Look, if we're talking, my thing is, are we talking best tank slot or are we talking best tank? Because it's hard to pass up a Katyusha. Anyway, so we're not going to go into that one specifically because the reality is it's a little bit too open. And we don't have the time.
It really is personal preference.
It is.
Well, okay. If for your collection, 100%, but it's for the list that you're building.
Yes.
Yeah.
If like one of the guys who won the Tri-Nations bolt action tournament in the UK, which is I think is England, Scotland, and Ireland.
Yeah.
The US player who ended up in the top 3 had 3 squads of Marines and 2 squads of Marines in a 3/4 ton trucks, 2 squads of engineers in 3/4 ton trucks, and medium howitzer Sherman. Veteran, gyro stabilized.
Yeah.
1,000 points. So he had the one thing that you don't take, which is a veteran medium tank.
Yeah.
For a competitive list.
Yeah.
Cleaned up. Because it's horrifying.
Yeah.
But if you're mobilized, what the hell do you need a howitzer for? What do you need a sniper for? You don't care. You're driving out people's faces, you're punching them in the face, you're framing them, and you're blowing them up with a mobile howitzer.
Yeah.
Don't need the rest
And
of
it's
it.
gyro stabilized.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, like...
I have done that myself.
It depends on your list. I don't take medium tanks in my 1,000-point list because I like howitzers and I play infantry aggressive.
Yeah.
I don't play motorized aggressive.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, it's just a very difficult question to answer.
It is. And similar with Amplemet teams in a Soviet list worthwhile. So the problem that we have with that question is, what do you mean by worthwhile? That's a very generic value statement.
What are implements?
It's a light mortar style profile with a flaming bowl of goodness that gets basically thrown out, and so it's like a little cannonball that blows
That's
up
kind
in
of cool.
front. It's for theme. They're amazing.
Yeah.
And they have I'm fairly sure they have the ability to set things on fire.
Yeah.
However, worthwhile is not a good qualitative statement for us to understand what we
fair
mean.
enough.
So for example, if the statement is to go, is it points effective? Well, it's an indirect firing weapon. So that never is ever going to equate necessarily unless you hit in the game and you go, of course it was points effective.
And then the moment you hit once, you've earned money back from your last 15 games.
Gambler's fallacy.
My advice to that would be play them because they're cool.
Yeah.
Don't play them because they are worthwhile.
Or spam them.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's okay.
We're just going to leave that hand grenade on the table.
That's just how I play. I'm like, oh, this unit's cool. Spam it.
Yeah.
I found this to be efficient, so I took 20 of them. So then we
Rangers
move into,
lead the way.
Then we move
Three
into
Jaffies.
they wrecked me hard. The tabletop gaming questions. What is the best mindset for approaching a game? Now, we've actually talked about this one before on the podcast.
We have. I think we did a whole episode on it.
Yeah, we did.
Although we were a bit, that one was a bit biased. We were
came
looking at it
different
from a
angle.
competitive
We
sort
did.
of angle.
Yeah.
So, sorry, what was the question again? Just
what is the best mindset for approaching a game?
have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck, have fun.
Yeah.
So the first things I wrote, to have fun playing a game. Sure, if you're at a tournament or event, possibly you want to squeeze like points efficiencies in a little bit, maybe.
But if you're approaching the game,
But if you're approaching the game,
good luck, have fun, may the best player win.
That's it.
Yep.
Play procedurally, right? Play the rules as written.
Yeah.
Play the player's pack. Play the mission. Be transparent. I don't know if anybody's played much trading card games like Magic or something like that.
Yeah.
More so for our audience. One of the weird things that happens that a lot of people like do and nobody's really explained why, but you literally narrate the things that you're doing
Yeah.
for your opponent. Upkeep. I'm going to untap. I'm going to draw this card. I'm going to play this card. And this card does this and I'm going to do it to that. Like, do that while you're playing bolt
Even
action.
international tournaments. I was watching that before, and they're like tapping cards and swapping them around and showing their opponent. Showing their opponent what they're doing.
And but I've actually also, if you've seen some streams of international tournaments,
Yeah.
they will do it in their native language, even though their opponent might not understand them.
Yes.
I have seen
Yeah.
Japanese players speak in Japanese to their English players, but just because it's the thing that you do.
Does it have anything to do with the anime, do you think?
No. 'Cause Magic doesn't have an anime.
It's
I remember
actually
Yu-Gi-Oh.
it's actually
My
it's
point,
ironic because we talk about it all the time, but it's that there's an element of respect associated with it, but it's about being transparent with what you're doing, and it's easier to have fun with people and play a game when both are being transparent.
Yeah, and that was really my point. Is be transparent and narrate what it is that you're doing, not because you think your opponent's an idiot, but just because you make a mistake. Everybody makes a mistake.
And it also stops feel bad moments of, you're supposed to activate that when
Like minefields and half tracks.
like minefields and half tracks.
Going down, ambushes, all of the other stuff.
Yeah, would you like to go down is a great example of sportsmanship.
Brilliant.
Approach it with sportsmanship and honor.
Yep.
Yeah. Just have fun.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I think that covers it well. How do you assess your opponent's capabilities at the start and then during a game? And this was a fun one.
You're also going to hate me for this one. Hi, my name is, what's your name? Nice to meet you. Have you played much bolt action before?
Yeah.
Have you played this game before? Cool.
Yep.
Have you played any tournaments before? Cool. How did you go?
Yeah.
Fantastic. What are you playing today? All right. I've done this. This is how much I've played.
This is my list.
Yep, this is my list. Do you want me to walk you through my list?
Yep.
Let's walk through your list. Fantastic. All right, let's do this. Let's have a good game.
Yep. And clarify anything along the way. You'd be like, Fanatics, how does that work again? Or whatever. Like, yeah.
I second everything that both of those gentlemen just said.
I didn't say anything.
Yeah, okay. But no, I in terms of you can get certain information about assessing your opponent's capability then. In light of the previous question, which is how you're approaching your game, being to have fun, you shouldn't necessarily be assessing your opponent's capabilities on the guise of, I'm going to crush you.
Yeah. I read
That's
this
not the
question
best.
and I imagined two people circling each other, getting ready to fight or something.
I'd be so bad at Mexican stand-up.
Yeah.
So I'd walk up to the other guy and be like, hi,
What are you using today?
have you done this before?
and then Gorcin gets shot. But I jumped at it from I was like, that deals with the start, but what about when you're going through the game? And I went, I've got a wealth of experience, not just with bolt action, but wargaming in general. mentally, I leverage that a lot to assess a player's capability. It's not overconfidence, it's just through experience and things that I watch out for. So I look at the way they deploy, I look at the way they paint their miniatures, I look at the way they build their list, I look at how they relate to rules, I look at mannerisms, how they hold tape measures, how they interact with their dice.
You what?
No.
You're a liar.
No, because
You're a dirty, dirty liar.
because all of these things that I observe about how somebody interacts with the tools that they play shows me how serious they are about the game that they play.
All right, Sherlock.
All right? It's not, I'm
Hold
not
the way they hold
hang
their
on.
tape measure.
No,
All right.
hang on. Let me explain. So
I'm shutting up.
when you hold the tape measure and you either are drawing it out and measure forwards, so from where your base, you're only ever measuring to the exact point that you've got versus around the other way where you are potentially measuring from the point to a movable end of the tape measure. So if you're doing it the
I
other way
understand.
around, right?
I'm trying to remember if I've ever seen anyone do that. I don't think I have.
That's because I've taught them all not to. But essentially that is something as a trigger for me to go, there is a possibility there that player either doesn't understand the implications of measuring the other way around because they think that's the right way to do it. All right. Or there's the possibility that they're trying to hide movement.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Again, wealth of experience.
Yeah.
I don't automatically think everyone's a cheater, for example.
No.
But assessing someone's capability, it may simply be that no one has shown them that it's better to measure the other way around. So I take those things as learning opportunities.
Okay.
But all of those things happen in, and we've talked about this before on the podcast, that ball of yarn that I go through with all those decision matrices.
Yeah.
That happens in a very, very quick space of time. So when I get into playing a game, within the first moments of deployment, watching people how they do things, how they interact, how they move their figures, I immediately know how capable and competent someone is in playing that war game. That doesn't mean that I know how strategically minded they are or how difficult they will be for me to play as an opponent.
Yeah.
That comes as I play the game.
Yeah.
But in terms of their capability of knowing, so I know that if I'll have to explain something to them, I know that if this is maybe a little bit me pushing the boundaries of friendship with a certain combination, so I won't do it. Or if I'm playing against someone like Russ Copley, for example, I know that I won't have to pull punches because we can have a really good game. If I play against Matt Castles, I enjoy playing a really good game against him, and so I won't pull punches because I know that we will both enjoy a hard-fought game. But all those things I stand and assess them when we get started. I can't explain exactly how fast that all works or how the information gets through, but all of that leads me to go, okay, I know that your competency level for this game is approximately here, that you've got a wargaming history, that you care about your miniatures being painted, or that you're comfortable just playing the game as they are. I've played with grey plastic for years and years and years, so there's no judgment associated with that. But realistically, if I figure out how confident my opponent is, that gives me the confidence to play how I want to play with them. And that's actually the driving point that I'm trying to get to. Once I know how capable we both are, I know I don't have to either tell you how things work or pull punches or, play really hard. So it's a slightly different take to how you guys said it, but I agree wholeheartedly with everything you guys said.
Cool. What's next?
Oh, dear. What are some of the most obscure conflicts that you would love to wargame through and why? So ironclad battles, or how would you go about it with collecting, scratch building stuff, doing 3D printing, conversions, rules? So it's a bit of a catch-all question.
Tyler's Googling obscure conflict.
No. Well, I Googled obscure conflicts for our episode.
Obscure battles.
Sorry, obscure battles.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember the name of this one. So you guys
Okay, cool.
answer first, and I'll try and remember mine.
Well, if you know about something, how do you know if it's still obscure?
Yeah.
And that's not because I'm a wealth of knowledge, but rather I know that there's so much stuff out there that I don't know about and haven't come across. So it's like, how do I define the unknown? Obscure conflicts. Yeah. I don't know of any conflicts that I know of that I considered obscure.
Yeah.
I think the only thing is air war is not really gamed a lot.
Yeah.
Particularly more modern stuff.
Yeah.
Like post 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s.
Everything moves too fast.
Well,
you'd be on the board. It's like, oh, my guy goes that way, my guy goes that way.
No, it's simple. You just have a logarithmic measurement.
Of course, of
movement.
course.
Or you do what Harpoon does, and you go, we're going to split the game into 3 different timestamps.
Well,
Fantastic.
That's why I picked up Missile Threat.
Yeah.
Was precisely for that reason.
Yeah.
So I guess how would I play that? Find a rule set, as obscure as it is, see what has been done, and play it, try it. If I like it, keep playing it. If I don't, change it.
Yep.
How would I collect it? I always start with like pen and paper stuff. So something like even Bolt Action, when I got the Band of Brothers set, I actually just flicked out a few of the bases and I just moved it around a little bit to get a feel for some of the mechanics. Because I'm one of those people where I can have a great time gaming even if it's just pieces of paper and stuff. I mean, D&D and all the other stuff, that's all that it is, right? Theater of the mind. Yeah. And then change the rules. And that's kind of the main thing. Just get out there and try it. Find a rule set, no matter how obscure, play it, force other people to play it, and have a good time.
Yeah, have a good time. That's important, that last part. I think for me, my challenge is partly defining what an obscure conflict is.
Yeah.
But I'm actually drawn to other aspects of the hobby. So the time period or the obscurity of a conflict isn't necessarily a reason that I want to play it as a war game.
Yeah.
I'm particularly drawn to rules and game mechanics and learning about those. My preference of aesthetics between gamers and scale, games and scales, is quite varied. So that part doesn't bother me as much. But more importantly, a big thing for me is, are there other players who are interested, who I can get involved? Because as much as I can play solo by myself, most of my games that I have are 2-player or more games. So I need to be able to make sure that those games are playable with other people. However, I do tend to buy into game systems with the art of 2 armies is better, because then they don't have to buy anything.
Yeah.
Now that has changed since obviously starting a family, but that's
now
predominantly
it's 4
my
because
approach.
you got kids you're going to play with.
Yeah,
I'm not allowed to say things like that yet. But I may have picked out certain things for them already. But but the reality is that a lot of the things that I go to buy, if the timing's not right for the people who I'm playing games with to get ready into a new system and I'm not ready with it, then they'll just sit on a shelf and wait. So they'll remain in their obscurity, ironically, until I've got someone on side ready to go. So when Gorcin and I, when we finally throw down to play Harpoon, and I can show you what that piece looks like.
Finally.
I've got the scenarios written, and now it's just a case of getting the timing right to make it happen. So maybe the 19th when I've got Tactical Reload down. Although I kind of want to play Tactical Reload.
I can't find it. It was it was a time in World War II when motorbikes, like a small squad of motorbike guys, took an entire city because they thought there was like a whole division coming towards the city, and so the general of the city was like, "Oh, all right, surrender!" And there was like 17 guys holding something like 1,200 soldiers prisoner in a hotel, and they're like, "Shit, we can't let them know that there's only 17 of us." Yeah, and I would really like to kind of play a prison break kind of scenario. I don't know. I want more RPGs in World War II. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Anyway,
there's a fair few of those things around. And then with the last part of the episode, then it's almost like confession time for Dan, really, because the last question that was submitted is, how do I know if I'm a power gamer or a rules lawyer? And then in brackets, I've got confessions from Dan.
Good question. I don't think there's anything wrong with rules lawyering.
I'll get into it.
The reason I say that is because rules lawyering is about what do the rules actually tell us to do and how does the game actually play. And I think it's important that everybody understands the rules of the game. I think when it comes to rules lawyering in a negative sense is... Do you know like what that actually comes from, where it comes from when somebody says, they're a rules lawyer?
So the first time that I heard the terminology coming through was related to when I was playing Warhammer games. And it was a term used to describe individuals whose behavior around telling someone what the rules actually were was unacceptable.
Right.
Or sometimes twisting what the rules said or what they were being represented as in their favor because of rules of a technicality. Now, in wargaming, this has taken many, many different forms over many different years. but it's things like, oh, no, I technically don't have to measure that way. I can measure this way, and that allows me to put this physical piece or this model in this position, and by doing that, I am allowed to take this shot, or things like that, where you go, you didn't really have to do that.
Right. Okay.
And so it's not necessarily so. And this is what I was going to get into with my confessions. I was a rules lawyer for a long time.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, logically and pragmatically, this is how the rules were played, because that's how the English language is written. Therefore, it has pre-existing definitions on what all of these things mean.
Right.
And therefore, you can't do that because it says you do it like this. And that actually got me into hot water on numerous occasions.
Bringing stuff that's actually not in the rule book into the rule book.
Because
of context
more the known
or
context or
Yeah,
definitions
yeah.
associated with the words. So a classic case, and even in bolt action, a classic case is the term within.
Yeah.
To be within 2 inches of something, is that on the edge of?
Yeah.
Or at least partially overlapping by 0.00001 millimeters.
Yeah.
And the reality there is you just should make the decision to dice off whether it's in or out
If it comes up.
if it comes up, as opposed to arguing about whether the definition is on the edge or not.
Right. Okay. So by that context, a rules lawyer is somebody who argues rules.
Yes.
Okay.
In this context.
Right. So here's, I guess my suggestion then is, how do you know if you're a rules lawyer? When was the last time you rolled off a rule in a non-competitive game? When was the last time you played a game with somebody and you guys were uncertain about the rule? Neither one of you grabbed the rule book, and neither one of you suggested, and you didn't suggest to roll off on the dice.
Last week.
No, but my point is, that's how you know if you're a rules lawyer.
Correct.
If you haven't rolled off on a rule and you've argued your point in a low stakes game or a no stakes game, you're a rules lawyer.
Yep.
And also, if you start off going, no, you're wrong, expletive, swear word, etc., probably a rules lawyer. A much better way would be going, I'm not sure it works like that, or I don't think it works like that, or I haven't played it like that. Now, if you haven't played it like that, that doesn't make you correct.
Correct.
Just because a whole bunch of people doesn't mean do it the same way, doesn't mean it's the right way to do it. Forward deploying being a very common one. Most people get that one wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Happens after deployment, not before. And so I guess on that, rules lawyer is, if you were able to have a genuine discussion with somebody about a rule and neither one of you swore and you didn't get upset and you either checked the rule book or rolled off on the dice, you're not a rules lawyer. You're just somebody who plays procedurally, which is you should do.
Yes.
If you're playing a low stakes game and you're swearing and you don't want to roll off on the dice and you're arguing about a rule that doesn't really matter, rules lawyer. Another one, which is, I don't think a lot of people will actually be able to admit if they fall in this category, if you've played the same rule differently for no reason.
Yes.
That's a massive red flag if you see somebody do that.
Yep.
If they play the same rule differently within the same game, without there being any conversation about it.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the big one.
Yeah. And I think there's, from my point of view, there are a couple of instances that, over my history of wargaming that I can remember where I go, I was doing what I thought was, or what I was terming as rules education.
Yeah.
Which, and not with a poor attitude, I mean with a genuinely good attitude to try and help someone to learn. But it took longer. It may not have landed properly. There's no guarantee that person embedded the change with them because they clearly didn't believe that it worked that way.
Yeah.
And so all it did was, whilst it wasn't a fantastic experience and it wasn't a horrible experience, it wasn't the best experience that I actually could have delivered for that person.
Detracted from the fun.
Yeah, detracted from the fun. And so, I've had to work really hard. Now, being a TO, there's a certain amount of rules lawyering that you have to accept you need to be, because people are going to come to you with their interpretations and you're going to have to go, sorry, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You also need to be humble enough to go, I actually made the wrong call on Sunday. It should have worked like this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I haven't been in a situation, thankfully, where I've had to then turn around to someone and go, I had to make a decision. It was wrong. Sorry. It actually cost you a place and a prize.
Yeah.
They're the more dangerous pieces that you want to be careful of. But my first call, and I call it out in the players pack, is you guys as players, go to the rule book. If you don't want to go to the rule book and dice it off, that's fine. But if you dice it off, you've got to play it consistently.
Yeah. That's the decision for the rest of the game. Yeah.
And it's only for the game. So next round, if someone else comes on and goes, no, I don't agree, it should be played that way, you have to deal with that and either dice it off again or go to the rule book.
Yeah.
Ideally,
I think
you-
consistency is the most important thing.
yeah. I think that's. I think you're right about that, Tyler.
Yeah.
If you're being inconsistent about rules, there's a good chance you're rules lawyering.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had something very important to say about this, but now I can't remember it.
We can always get on to the next fun one, which is Dan the Power Gamer.
Yeah.
How do you know if you're a power gamer?
Well, you win lots. No, that's not true. Gorcin's like, oh, sigh. So how do I know if you're a power gamer? Power gaming to me is, it's two separate things, right? So like everything, everyone's got a different view on
Sure.
how things get
No, I
interpreted,
see where he's going with
right?
this.
So there's the power gamer, which is the win at all costs. I will always push hard to get my way. And it often pairs with a rules lawyer.
Yep.
I will always push to do these things. It's classically known as don't be that guy,
Yes.
Or just that guy.
or just that guy in general.
Yeah.
Capital T, capital G.
Yeah.
Then there is
Cheeto
Power-
dust all over it. Anyways.
then there is power gamer. You can actually be a power gamer or a powerful gamer without those other traits.
Without being a win at all cost
Yeah.
gamer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the category that I fit in.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I do not shirk away from the fact that I play hardball when I play games generally.
Yeah.
So I designed lists that are quite balanced and concise. They're good at what they need to do. I look at the game and I set up and I go, I have a plan. I'm going to follow my plan. My plan doesn't give you the opportunity if you've made a mistake to correct it. I will mercilessly crush that mistake. But that's because of how I play.
Yep.
That generally makes me a very tough opponent to verse if I get you on the ropes, because it's extremely hard to recover.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because I've followed a plan on how I want the game to play.
Yeah.
So it'll feel like I'm applying a lot of force in that space, and I will come across with a very sometimes aggressive game plan on delivering on that strategy. That can be because I'm a power gamer.
Yep.
And that's it's driving. I present a very powerful aspect of playing that game.
Yep.
It's about this is what's going to happen. Sorry, just lie on the railroad tracks while I run over you. That'd be great. Again, poor behaviors I've had in the past. I used to also be a win at all cost gamer.
Yeah.
So I've had to transition out of that space and recognize what the bad attitudes were that were not appropriate for the gaming table and the social circles and gatherings to be, and to cut those out so that I can actually I can play the way I want to play, but I don't have to play and be
That guy.
that guy.
Yeah. I'd sit back and go, oh yeah, there's power gaming and a power gamer.
Yes.
Right? So a power gamer is a capital T, capital G, that guy.
Yeah.
Whereas a power gaming is something that can occur and is a behavior that people choose to follow.
And is permissible.
And is permissible.
Yeah.
Like I sat back and was playing around with lists and stuff, and I was like, these are the parameters. I want 20 shirkers and 20 guys with assault rifles, right? And then it was like, what's the best combination I can then go from here?
Yeah.
But I'm not sitting there being like, yes, I'm going to get 200 shirkers, like we were talking before, and just cheese the hell out of it. It's like, this is the basis. Let's have some. That's the fun part. What's the power part?
I think when it comes to identifying yourself as a power gamer, which there's nothing wrong with, is playing to win.
Yeah.
Is the easiest to do in pre and post game.
Yes.
Tournaments are more obvious than others, but generally, if you sit down and you go, if your first port of call is what's the players pack, what's the missions, what are the things I'm going to need to win in each mission, how do I build a list that allows me to win all those missions,
Yep.
and you play test and you run through that multiple times, that's power gaming behavior.
Yeah.
Not bad, mind you.
Yeah, just that's what that is. Post game is if you lost, is your first port of call, if your first response is that person, unit, mechanic, etc. is bullshit or it's broken, that's that guy territory.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's, and if you start doing that in game as well, sort yourself out.
Yeah.
But just go, I don't know how that works. Okay, that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Are you sure it works like that? Can you show me the rules? Be
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. That is how that works. Soldier on.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're no, that's bullshit and it shouldn't work like that and that's
Yeah.
garbage and I can't believe that's in the game. This game system sucks.
For sure.
That's that guy behavior. So playing to win, perfectly
Yeah.
legitimate. Being a dick about it, It's not
Yeah.
being.
I laughed before, not because of what Dan was saying, but because I just I thought about something in my head. There are three types of players: standard array, points by, or dice roll, which is a D&D reference, and I think it perfectly encapsulates what we're trying to get across here.
I think so. I think that's actually pretty good. It's
Yeah.
and I think in both of these instances, what we've actually described is the fact that it's a spectrum, and you're going to get different people in different spaces, or people like myself where they're in that transition phase of, I understand that I can be win at all costs, or I can be a really bad rules lawyer at times. I'm trying to step away from that.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a challenge. It took a lot of effort to move, and I occasionally fall back into those on occasion.
For sure.
Sewers. But you know, it's recognizing as well that there are certain behaviors that are just outright wrong. And obviously, you know, the community will be able to point those out to you very, very clearly.
Yep.
Or we'll point you to the door.
Or point you to the door. Yeah. Or deny ticket sales or whatever we need to do. But the reality is that for most people, they will actually fall on that spectrum somewhere. Some people prefer to be a little bit more heavier in the power game, but they won't necessarily win at all costs, but they'll bring a strong force.
Yep.
Some people would prefer to, well, I'd like to win at all costs, but I don't hold any of the attitudes that a win at all cost gamer will, and I bring a really soft bunny list. So if I win, I feel amazing, but I'm very unlikely to win. You know, and then the rules lawyers are actually the same. There's rules education, there's making sure you play it right for the game. Generally, that's the one that gets people at tournaments and events, that where I think stereotypically this term would have evolved from. And then you get the really poor behaviors where it's like you feel like you're fighting every single dice roll, every single measurement, every single rule, and it's like it doesn't work that way. And again, sometimes if that person is new, they might simply be learning and taking a slightly wrong attitude in how to learn and interact with the player. Yeah. So, you know, be aware of that. Yeah. However, if it's consistently poor rules lawyering, then it's okay. No, this is maybe a bit more of a problem. Yeah. So, but yeah, so that's
the key takeaways. Rules lawyering and power gaming are not inherently negative behaviors.
No,
not inherently.
They have negative attitudes associated with them because of some bad experiences.
Yep.
And just make sure that if you are playing procedurally and rules as written, don't be a dick about it.
Yeah.
And if you're there to win, don't be a dick about it.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think
shake your opponent's hand, thank them for their time.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Both at the start and at the end. Right?
Yeah.
And
but I got to get better at that, ironically, because being a TO for so long, so like we go to get started and they're like, "You're going to shake my hand or anything?" It's like, "Oh yeah, right."
But it's like if you're worried about power gaming being a negative connotation, be mindful that not everybody is a power gamer. So just do the thing that everybody's going to laugh at me for. Just have a conversation. If somebody you don't know asks you for a pickup game, just be like, what kind of game are you looking for? Are you like here to compete and practice for a tournament?
Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm going to bring my power game.
Yeah.
If you have no idea how much of a power gamer you are, ask yourself how much time you spend building your lists for
100%
for non-competitive games.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there constantly, and if your driver is what are these crazy powerful units and what are these crazy powerful combos?
Yeah.
That's power gaming behavior.
Yeah.
Again, no criticism, no fault with that whatsoever. Absolutely has its place. And if you're doing this power gaming stuff and you go, can I have a pickup game? And you go up to an opponent and you don't ask them and you bring out, I don't know,
something horrible.
Like 15 HE templates and cavalry spam. Like that's something that would have been like, hey, here's this little disgusting combo I figured out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you okay if I play this? It's probably going to Dan's probably going to ban it. Do you mind if we play it? And they're going to be like, hell yeah, I do. I don't want to fight horses in 15 HE templates. Or they might be like, bring it on. I got 16 HE templates.
It's like, did you see Dan's list? Dan's list has all of the things. It's like, how did that even happen? It's like, oh, he's got to be cheating.
Yeah. And so if you're a person who spends a lot of that time trying to find those combos and trying to build those crazy lists, it's power gaming behavior. If you're a kind of person who goes the other way, what's cool? Like, I've got a couple of cool things in my force. How do I round it out? It's not power gaming behavior.
No. And I think the other thing I was just going to point to that is one of the easiest ways that I realized and identified through my behaviors of what I was doing that I was getting a little bit more win at all cost power gamery and you know, in a bad way, was I became obsessed about point efficiencies and unit effectiveness. So it became, and that was a very 40K thing that I brought with me originally to Bold Action. It was like, well, it's about bang for buck for dollars. It's about bang for buck for points. And it's those things that I can be efficient with that give me more consistent results. Again, not that is the wrong way to play, but I was focusing on those things too much instead of just going, no, I'm willing to compromise what is considered the best units or the best combinations so that I can just get the force together and play a game.
And there is absolutely a time and place. If you're exclusively a power gamer who likes the competitive stuff, hats off to you, man.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Just be a respectful power gamer.
Yep.
At the end of the day. Power like win because you're a good power gamer, not because you're a dickhead.
And squeezing in like stuff into the rules. And bringing 4 of something when you can only bring 3 and hoping somebody doesn't notice.
Yeah, no.
And sneaking an extra dice into the bag.
Yeah. Oh.
I think some of those things, you start crossing the line from power gamer to blatant cheat.
Yeah.
But
I did that once actually. I was playing Test of Honor with Eli.
Oh yes.
And
how could you do that to Eli, man?
Oh,
he's such a nice guy.
I still think about it. I still think
is that
and now it's on record
where you're about to fall asleep and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, Eli.
I literally sometimes I'm laying down or I'm about to play another game. I'm like, I'm just gonna check how many tokens I have because I don't want to feel because I sat back and was like, did I do that on purpose?
Okay, if you're asking the question about whether you did it on purpose, you didn't do it on purpose. Because I've had it happen in events and stuff where I've run things and then all of a sudden like the dice have come out of the bag and there's like, oh, you got 1 left. And I'm like, no, I don't. No, you have 1 left. And I go,
yeah,
no reserves, no outflank.
And
that
happens. That's not a big deal. But it's you just go.
I mean, I put it back in for the next round.
There's the line. We found the line.
I guess one of the big red flag behaviors is like, when was the last time you apologized for getting something wrong?
Yeah, 100%.
If you're not, when was the last time you got something wrong?
Yeah, if you don't get anything wrong ever when you play a game, and you don't apologize for it, and you've never diced up for rules, man, I got a new title for you because you are that guy.
And I'm just like, I'm at that point. It's like if you haven't diced up for rules, you haven't apologized to everyone, you're potentially doing other things that are blatantly cheating. It's like, why are people playing you? Like,
I know.
Yeah. If people aren't playing you, maybe a good idea to look at your behavior. Anyway,
I got to go pay for more parking anyway, so this is probably a good spot to finish us up here. We'll have to cut that. I apologize.
Yeah, people can know that you park.
Hey.
How dare you park? Tyler, would you like to outro us?
Yeah, why not? Well, all our cameras are dead. This episode was way longer than we thought. But thank you very much for joining us. It's just our voices now, but I've been Tyler.
I've been Gorcin.
And I've been Daniel.
And thank you so much. And remember to check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Season's greetings and a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
Hey guys, thank you very much for listening to the latest episode of HMG Podcast. It came out a little later than we expected, but that's okay. As this was a Christmas special, we've had a couple people ask what we do behind the scenes as some of the FAQ questions that we got. And so we decided to give you everything that we record before we get to the first take. It's funny. We think so anyway. If you don't want to listen, stop now. That's the end of the podcast. Thank you very much for listening. But if you want a little bit of bonus content, here you go. Thanks. See you next time. Go for it. Spit some bars.
You guys aren't ready. It's too early on a Saturday morning for me.
Now, when you're saying bars, do you mean Browning automatic rifles? And if so, how are you going to spit those?
God. You are so out of touch, Dan. Sometimes I think you're like 60.
I have been told that I am the youngest, oldest looking project manager that works at HBF.
Oh, God. What am I going to do with you guys?
Podcast. Famously.
Yeah. Hopefully everything is good from here.
There was, you know how there's
We've had a pretty cracking year.
There's like Einstein's theory where it's like the only
this
thing...
is going to be good.
Tyler
not a theory. Science
not a theory. What is
Just
it?
caption this as science with Tyler.
Yeah. Science, bitch. What did he say?
No, but
the only things that are infinite is What is it?
The difference in you and Jesse Pinkman is he actually knows scientific protocols.
Fuck off.
All I'm saying, if I'd choosing you and him, I'd trust him at my lab bench.
I have nothing to add to this conversation.
That's because he has a good mentor.
It's okay. So Einstein said some stuff that was super relevant that we can't remember. I mean, that's just what the rest of the science community does.
Anyway, point being, someone made a theory
not
about
true at all.
podcasters.
Did they?
And it's if you put 3 white guys in a room for long enough, they'll come up with a podcast.
Yeah, I'd believe it.
That sounds true.
Yeah, well. Exhibit A. Cool.
Well, the only 2 things that are infinite is the universe and human stupidity.
Yes, that's it.
Ah.
And the third one is the amount of Zubats in this fucking cave.
What?
Pokemon thing.
Oh, yeah, the zoo Pokemon. Yeah.
The zoo Pokemon. Tyler,
So it's
the zoo Pokemon.
Zubat Pokemon. Zubat. It's basically a purple bat that infinitely appears in caves.
A 10. I know what the fucking Pokemon is.
Our viewers might not.
Oh, damn.
Just download Pokemon Go. You'll figure it out.
Fucking. The real question is, who is the Pokemon Blue kid in this room?
Oh.
I'm not that old.
You
just called yourself out there.
Yeah, I know.
I started on silver.
So here's a crazy
Did you
story.
leave your pacifier in your car?
I actually wasn't allowed to play Pokemon as a kid.
Yeah, I'd believe it.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I grew up in a very sheltered childhood where my parents were largely, my mum was pretty much anything that wasn't strictly godly or biblical was therefore not allowable.
Wow.
So probably just her upbringing. She had a very strict traditional religious upbringing in her family as well. Her dad was a pastor, so quite
Type.
strict on some of that stuff. But
I'm glad we're just all leaving that alone.
and
I cannot believe you fucking used the word tight. Good God.
it's all good. So anyway, yeah. So I just wasn't allowed to play a lot of those things. It actually took me. I knew about Warhammer and model wargaming stuff for probably a good 6 years before I was actually allowed to buy my first anything related to it.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Magic the Gathering. Loved the card game. Wasn't allowed to do a damn thing with it. Hid it under my bed sheets. Genuinely, I was playing by myself and hid a game of it under my bed sheets to no one's gonna look under there obviously from that. And I was
What a rebel.
I was young. I can't remember exactly how young, but I was like, I'll come back and I'll learn it later. And I was like, this way I can make sure no one touches it and I'm not getting in trouble. And that day, Mum decided, well, I'm cleaning all the bed sheets of the house.
Oh,
and so
no.
flipped it open and I got wrecked when I got home.
Yeah, I bet.
I think I'm a bit quiet.
Give me that.
It's all right. We can do that.
Yeah, we can do that. Hit me.
What do you want me to hit you with? My rhythm stick?
Your bars.
Oh, wow.
I need those bars. Okay.
Well, this FAQ is going a different direction.
All right, cool. This has all been recording.
No, that's okay. That's all right. We're testing.
Okay. There we go. All right. HMG episode 16 Christmas special. Yep. I got nothing else to add to that.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. We're back with something a little bit different with our format.
You are loud. Sorry, keep going.
I can be a bit loud at times, like a lot of the time. Helps when you're a TO.
Yes, yeah.
From the top?
From the top.
From the top. Try that again.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to HMG Podcast. This is episode 16. We're looking forward to tackling some questions we've got from our viewers.
Third time lucky. Remember the format of I'm Daniel. So people have names to voices.
No.
And this is the HMG FAQ.
HMG FAQ. Okay. As the name of it.
As it's kind of like, instead of the bolt action FAQ.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I shouldn't. No, that's right.
No, you do it. You do it.
I got it. It's
You
only
do
going
it.
to take us 10 more. We've got time. All right.
Get you a lectern. We'll get you a teleprompter.
You got those?
Yes. Yeah. There's got to be a teleprompter app on your phone.
That's all right.
There is. There's plenty.
Fucking
All right, let's do it.
nothing new under the sun. It's all been figured out.
It has. There's no
Pyramids.
such thing as an original thought. You will die in the heat death of the universe.
Pyramids.
Probably earlier.
Probably.
In fact, if you do live that long,
Let us know
Yes.
how it goes.
Let us know.
ideally before we die.
Yeah, restaurant at the end of the universe. Am I right?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Put a couple of bucks in your bank account. Interest covers the difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.